I'm done. 2 words. That's all it took to shatter the carefully constructed walls between them. When Daniel Hayes walked into that office at 7:30 p.m., ready to burn his entire career to the ground, he never expected her to be the one standing in his way. Isabella Laurent, the woman who'd made his life hell for 2 years, was about to reveal the one truth that would change everything. But before we get to that moment that'll leave you speechless, I want to invite you to stick around until the very end of this story. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now let's begin. The fluorescent lights in the office had that sickly quality they always got after 7 p.m. Not quite bright enough to work by, but too harsh to ignore. Daniel Hayes sat at his desk, mechanical keyboard silent for the first time in hours, staring at the contents of his drawer like they belonged to someone else. A USB drive with 3 years of project files. A coffee mug his daughter Emma had painted when she was 5. The handle chipped from the time he'd knocked it over during a late-night panic about the Mercer account. A framed photo of Emma at her 6th birthday party, gap-toothed and grinning, holding up a homemade card that read, "World's Best Dad," in crayon. He hadn't been there for that party. Daniel picked up the frame, ran his thumb across the glass. The memory of that day still stung. Sitting in a conference room 200 miles away while his phone buzzed with photos from his mother, who'd stepped in to host because he was essential to some presentation that Mitchell ended up giving anyway. Essential. The word tasted like ash. He set the frame down carefully in the cardboard box he'd pulled from the supply closet. The box was supposed to be for printer paper, but it would do. Everything in his professional life could fit in a box meant for office supplies. That felt about right. Daniel was 32, though he felt about 50 most days. Single father, senior analyst, the guy people came to when the impossible needed doing, usually with a smile and a, "You don't mind, right?" He did mind. He'd minded for the last year and a half, watching his life disappear into spreadsheets and strategy decks, while Emma grew up in pixels on his phone screen. The office was mostly empty now. The hum of the HVAC system filled the silence, punctuated by the distant rattle of cleaning carts in the far wing. Monday nights were always quiet. Most people had lives to get back to. Daniel used to be one of them. He picked up the stack of files on his desk. The Morrison project, due Friday. 200 hours of work, maybe more. The kind of project that would make or break someone's quarter. He'd been grinding on it for 6 weeks, coming in at 6 a.m., leaving after 9. Emma barely looked up when he came home anymore. "Hey, Dad." "Hey, sweetheart, how was school?" "Fine." That was the whole conversation now. Every night. "Fine." She'd stopped trying to tell him about her day around the same time he'd missed her school play. The one where she'd been a tree. A tree. You'd think you couldn't miss your kid being a tree, but he'd managed it. Daniel dropped the Morrison files into the trash can. The sound echoed. He stood there for a moment, waiting to feel something, regret maybe, or panic. Some instinct for self-preservation that would kick in and make him fish the files back out. But there was nothing, just a hollow kind of calm, like the moment right before a storm when the air goes still. This was it. He was done. Not just with Morrison, not just with the late nights and the weekend emails and the way Mitchell always said team player like it meant doormat. Done with all of it. He reached for his phone, pulled up his mother's contact. She'd understand. She'd been telling him for months that this job was killing him. His thumb hovered over the call button. "Working late again?" The voice cut through the silence like a knife. Sharp, precise, and far too familiar. Daniel didn't need to look up to know who it was. He'd know that voice anywhere. It had been the soundtrack to 2 years of his professional life, always appearing at the worst possible moments with observations that were technically helpful and emotionally devastating. Isabella Laurent. She stood 3 feet from his desk, arms crossed, dressed like she'd just stepped out of a board meeting, which she probably had. Slate gray blazer, black slacks that probably cost more than his rent, heels that added 3 inches to her already imposing 5'9" frame. Dark hair pulled back in a way that was professional and severe, and somehow still distractingly elegant. Daniel had spent 2 years trying not to notice things like that about Isabella Laurent. "Not working," he said, dropping the phone into the box. "Leaving." She glanced at the box, then at the trash can with the Morrison files, then back at him. One eyebrow arched, That signature move she did when she was about to eviscerate someone's logic. It's 7:30 on a Monday. Mitchell's going to have questions if you're gone before 8. Mitchell can ask them to someone else. The Morrison deadline is not my problem anymore. The words came out flat, factual. Daniel went back to clearing his desk, pulling out old receipts and sticky notes, and the weird collection of pens that had accumulated over 3 years. Isabella didn't move. "What are you doing?" she asked. "What does it look like?" "It looks like you're having some kind of breakdown." Daniel laughed, short, humorless. "Yeah, that's pretty much it." He could feel her eyes on him, analyzing, calculating. Isabella Laurent was 30 years old and already a VP at Meridian Capital, the youngest in the company's history. Billionaire family, MIT grad, the kind of person who solved problems other people didn't even know existed yet. She was brilliant and ruthless, and had made Daniel's life professionally miserable since the day she'd transferred to their division. Also, she was the only person in the office who'd ever actually challenged him. "You're quitting," she said. "Not a question." "Gold star for observation." "Because of Morrison?" "Because I missed my daughter's birthday last month." Daniel grabbed the coffee mug, wrapped it in a sheet of paper. "Because she stopped asking me to read bedtime stories. Because I can't remember the last time I wasn't tired." Isabella was quiet for a moment, then, "So you're running away?" That got his attention. Daniel looked up, met her eyes, dark brown, sharp as cut glass. "Excuse me? You heard me." She stepped closer, her heels clicking on the polished floor. "Things get hard, and you're just, what, walking out? That's your solution?" "My solution," Daniel said slowly, "is choosing my kid over a company that doesn't give a damn whether I exist. That's dramatic. That's reality." He shoved the drawer shut harder than necessary. "You wouldn't understand. Try me." "You're Isabella Laurent." He gestured at her, at the designer clothes and the VP title and everything she represented. "Your family owns half the real estate in the city. You could quit tomorrow and never work another day in your life. This," he waved at the office around them, "this is a game to you. For me, it's survival, and I'm losing." Her expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. "You think this is a game to me? Isn't it?" "No." The word was quiet, but it carried weight. "But I'm not going to stand here and justify myself to someone who's decided to give up." "I'm not giving up," Daniel said. "I'm choosing something different." "By throwing away 3 years of work?" "3 years of what?" He stood now, met her at eye level. They were close enough that he could smell her perfume, something subtle and expensive that he'd never been able to identify. 3 years of promises about promotions that never came. 3 years of carrying projects while Mitchell takes credit. 3 years of missing every single important moment in my daughter's life for a company that would replace me before my desk was cold. Isabella's jaw tightened. "You're angry." "I'm tired." "So rest." "I've been resting." Daniel grabbed the box, hefted it onto his hip. "Every night after Emma goes to bed, I sit on my couch and tell myself tomorrow will be different. That if I just work a little harder, stay a little later, prove myself one more time." He stopped, shook his head. "I'm done lying to myself." "Where will you go?" The question surprised him. There was something in her voice, not quite concern, but close to it. "I don't know," he admitted. "Somewhere that closes at 5. Somewhere I can be home for dinner." "You're too good for that." "I'm too tired to care." Isabella stared at him like she was trying to solve an equation that wasn't adding up. For someone who always had an answer, she looked genuinely lost. "This doesn't make sense," she said finally. "What doesn't?" "You. Giving up, that's not—" She stopped, seemed to recalibrate. "You don't just quit." "Watch me." He moved past her, headed for the elevator bank. His footsteps echoed in the empty office, each one feeling like a small rebellion. Behind him, he heard the click of her heels following. "Daniel." He didn't stop. "Daniel." He hit the elevator call button, watched the numbers above the door start to descend. 17th floor. They had 12 to go. "Would you just—" Isabella grabbed his arm. The touch stopped him cold. In 2 years of working together, arguing, competing, pushing each other, they'd never actually made physical contact. Her hand on his forearm felt like a static shock. He turned. She pulled her hand back immediately, but the air between them had changed. Something unspoken crackled in the space where her fingers had been. "What do you want, Isabella?" He was so tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of pretending. Tired of conversations that went nowhere. "You want to tell me I'm making a mistake? Fine, I'm making a mistake. You want to guilt me about Morrison? Go ahead. But nothing you say is going to change. Why didn't you tell me?" The question derailed his momentum completely. "Tell you what? That it was this bad." She looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time since she'd appeared at his desk, the executive mask slipped. "You've been falling apart for months, and you didn't say anything. Since when do we talk about personal stuff? We talk. We argue about marketing strategies and debate revenue projections. That's not talking. Then what is it?" The elevator dinged. Doors slid open, revealing an empty car bathed in that same sickly fluorescent light. Daniel stepped inside, hit the button for the lobby. "It's work," he said. "Just work." Isabella stepped in before the doors could close. They stood on opposite sides of the elevator, the box between them like a physical barrier. The car lurched into motion, beginning its descent. 12 floors. 12 floors of silence or conversation or whatever this was. "You really didn't notice?" Isabella asked quietly. "Notice what?" "That I've been helping you." Daniel blinked. "What are you talking about?" "The Kendrick proposal last month. Someone forwarded you the competitive analysis the night before your pitch." "That was you?" "The summer's account in August. Your data model had a formula error that would have blown the whole projection. Someone left a sticky note on your desk pointing it out. He remembered that. He'd thought it was from accounting." "Isabella, the Morrison project." She was still staring straight ahead at the descending numbers above the door. "You think you've been working on it for 6 weeks?" "Haven't I? I've been doing the vendor analysis in parallel, running interference with Mitchell when he tried to add scope, covering your Thursday meetings so you could leave early for Emma's parent-teacher conferences." She finally looked at him. "You really thought you were doing this alone?" The elevator felt smaller suddenly. Daniel's grip on the box tightened. "Why?" "Why what?" "Why would you do that? We're not—" He struggled for the word. "We're not friends." Something crossed her face, too quick to read. "No," she agreed. "We're not." The elevator passed the 7th floor, 6th, 5th. "So why help me?" Daniel pressed. Isabella was quiet for a long moment, then so soft he almost missed it. "Because I know what it looks like when someone's drowning." The elevator chimed. 4th floor, someone had called it. The doors opened. A security guard stood there, radio crackling on his belt. He took one look at them. Daniel with his box, Isabella with her inscrutable expression, and waved them on. "Going down? I'll catch the next one." Doors closed. 3rd floor. "I'm not drowning," Daniel said. "You threw your project in the trash. I'm making a choice." "You're running." "Maybe I am." He turned to face her fully. "Maybe that's exactly what I'm doing. Does it matter?" "Yes." "Why?" 2nd floor. Isabella opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Because—" Ground floor. The doors slid open, revealing the marble lobby, empty except for the night guard at his desk and the sound of traffic filtering in from the street beyond the glass doors. Daniel stepped out, turned back. Isabella stood in the elevator, one hand on the door to keep it from closing, looking at him with an expression he'd never seen on her face before. It took him a second to place it. Uncertainty. "Because what?" he asked. She shook her head. "Forget it." "Isabella." "It doesn't matter." "Clearly it does." The elevator started beeping, warning that the door had been held too long. Isabella ignored it. "If you walk out those doors," she said, "you're not just quitting the job." "What else would I be quitting?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy with something neither of them wanted to name. The elevator's beeping grew more insistent. "Go home to your daughter," Isabella said finally. She pulled her hand back, let the doors start to close. "She needs you more than this place does." Daniel caught the door. It bounced back open, beeping even louder now. "That's not an answer," he said. It's the only one you're getting tonight." "Why do you care?" The question came out harder than he meant it to. Seriously, Isabella, why does it matter to you whether I stay or go? She looked at him for a long moment, something unreadable in her dark eyes. Then she reached out and gently pushed his hand off the door. Because, she said quietly, someone should. The doors closed. Daniel stood there, staring at the brushed steel, at his own distorted reflection staring back. Behind him, the security guard cleared his throat. You good, Mr. Hayes? Was he? Daniel looked down at the box in his arms. At the coffee mug Emma had made, the photo of her gap-toothed smile. At the USB drive full of projects that had consumed his life. He looked back at the elevator, at the numbers climbing back up. 3rd floor, 5th, 7th. Then he looked at the glass doors leading out to the street, to his car, to the apartment where Emma was probably already asleep, her light-up sneakers kicked off by the door, and her homework half finished on the kitchen table. Yeah, he said, more to himself than to the guard. I'm good. He walked toward the exit, made it 3 steps before he stopped. Because someone should. The words kept echoing. Not what she'd said, the way she'd said it. Like it meant something, like he meant something. Daniel turned, looked back at the elevators. The numbers had stopped at 17. She'd gone back up. Back to her office, probably. To keep working until midnight like she always did, because Isabella Laurent didn't do anything halfway. He thought about the Kendrick proposal, the Summers account, the Morrison project he'd thought was killing him, not knowing she'd been carrying half the weight. I know what it looks like when someone's drowning. When had she figured that out? More importantly, why had she cared enough to help? They weren't friends. They were barely colleagues in the traditional sense. For 2 years, they'd circled each other like boxers in a ring, never quite throwing punches, but never backing down either. Every meeting was a chess match. Every project was a competition. She pushed him, he pushed back, and somewhere in that constant friction, he'd forgotten to ask himself why someone that brilliant, that successful, that far above his pay grade, bothered engaging with him at all. The security guard coughed politely. Sir, you okay? Daniel realized he was still standing in the middle of the lobby, box in hand, staring at nothing. Can I leave this here? He asked. Just for a minute? The guard looked confused, but nodded. Sure thing. Daniel set the box down by the security desk, checked his watch. 7:45. Emma would be asleep by now. His mother put her down at 7:30 on school nights. He had time. The elevator ride back up felt longer than the one down. 17th floor. The doors opened to the same half-lit office, the same humming silence. But now he was looking for something specific. He moved through the rows of cubicles toward the executive wing, where the real offices were. The ones with doors and windows and budgets that didn't require 3 layers of approval. Isabella's office was at the corner. Of course it was. The door was open. Light spilled out into the hallway. Daniel stopped at the threshold. She was at her desk, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, staring at her computer with the kind of focus that made the rest of the world disappear. Classical music played softly from a speaker on her shelf, something with piano, delicate and complex. Paper spread across her desk in organized chaos. 3 different colored pens lined up perfectly parallel. She hadn't noticed him yet. Daniel watched her work, really watched her, maybe for the first time ever. The way she bit her lower lip when she was thinking. The way her fingers drummed against the desk in rhythm with the music. The way her shoulders carried tension like armor. I know what it looks like when someone's drowning. He knocked on the doorframe. Isabella's head snapped up, eyes wide with genuine surprise. Daniel? Hey. She sat back, guarded now. I thought you left. I tried. He leaned against the doorframe, suddenly aware that he was invading her space without invitation. Got as far as the lobby. What happened? Started thinking about what you said. Which part? The part where you've apparently been keeping me afloat for months without me noticing. Isabella's expression shifted, just barely, but he caught it. Something vulnerable flickered across her face before she locked it down. I told you to forget it. Can't. Daniel, why? He stepped into her office properly now, close enough to see the faint shadows under her eyes that makeup didn't quite hide. You don't do anything without a reason, so what's the reason? Does there have to be one? With you? Always. She stood, came around the desk. They were close now, closer than they'd been in the elevator, close enough that he could see the exact moment she decided to deflect. Maybe I just didn't want to watch you fail. I don't buy that. Then don't. Isabella. He said her name like a challenge. She met it. What do you want me to say, Daniel? That I've been secretly helping you because we're best friends and I care about your well-being? We both know that's not true. Then what is true? That you're a good analyst and the department runs better when you're functional. That's a corporate answer. We're in a corporate environment. It's 7:45 on a Monday night and we're the only two people here. Try again. Something in her eyes flashed. Anger maybe, or frustration, or something else he couldn't name. You want the truth? That would be nice. Fine. She crossed her arms, that armor back in place. You've been miserable for months. Watching you drag yourself through days like a ghost was... She stopped, recalibrated. It was inefficient. Someone needed to step in. Inefficient. Yes. That's still a corporate answer. It's the answer you're getting. Daniel laughed, but there was no humor in it. You know what's funny? I came back up here thinking maybe I'd been wrong about you. That maybe underneath all the walls and the perfect professionalism, there was someone who actually gave a damn. But you can't even admit that, can you? Admit what? That you're human. He was angry now, not at her exactly, but at the situation, at himself, at the whole careful dance they'd been doing for 2 years. That you might possibly care about someone beyond their productivity metrics. You don't know what you're talking about, don't I? He took another step closer. You're here at 7:45 because you don't have anywhere else to be. You work 80-hour weeks because it's easier than going home to an empty apartment. You help me in secret because if you did it openly, people might think the great Isabella Laurent actually has feelings. Her jaw tightened. You're projecting. Am I? Or am I just the first person brave enough to say it out loud? You want brave? Her voice went sharp. Here's brave. You're not quitting because of Emma. You're quitting because you're scared. The words hit like a slap. Excuse me? You heard me. She moved closer, into his space now. You're terrified that if you keep trying and still fail, it'll mean you're not good enough. So you're walking away before anyone can confirm it. That's not, isn't it? Her eyes blazed. You're one promotion away from director level, one project away from being someone who matters in this company. But that's terrifying, isn't it? Being seen, being important. Because what if you get there and you're still not happy? What if success doesn't fix what's broken? Daniel's hands clenched at his sides. You don't know anything about what's broken. I know more than you think. Because you're so open about your own problems? This isn't about me. Like hell it isn't. His voice rose. You want to psychoanalyze me? Fine. But at least I'm honest about being a mess. You walk around here like you've got everything figured out, like nothing touches you, like you're above all the normal human problems the rest of us have. But you're just as lost as I am. You're just better at hiding it. The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut. Isabella stared at him, chest rising and falling, color high in her cheeks. When she spoke, her voice was dangerously quiet. Get out of my office. Isabella, I said get out. He should leave. He could see it in her eyes. He'd crossed a line, said too much, pushed too hard. The smart thing would be to back off, apologize, salvage what was left of whatever professional relationship they had. But he was so tired of being smart. No, he said. Her eyes widened. No, not until you tell me the truth. I don't owe you. Why do you care? The question came out raw. Not the corporate answer, not the efficiency speech, the real reason. Why do you care if I quit? Isabella opened her mouth, closed it. Her hands trembled slightly before she fisted them at her sides. Because the word hung there, incomplete. Daniel waited. She turned away, faced the window. The city spread out below them, all lights and motion and life happening somewhere else. When she spoke again, her voice was different, smaller somehow, more real. Do you remember the Hartwell pitch last November? The question threw him. Yeah, we lost it to Blackstone. We lost it because I made a math error in the revenue projections, a stupid basic mistake that any intern should have caught. She was still facing the window, not looking at him. Mitchell buried it in the post-mortem, blamed market conditions. But you knew. I saw you checking my work after that. You caught 3 more errors over the next 2 months. Small ones. Things no one else would have noticed. Daniel did remember. He chalked it up to healthy competition, keeping the star VP honest. You never said anything, Isabella continued. Never told Mitchell. Never used it against me. You just quietly fixed them. Slipped the corrections into email threads like suggestions instead of accusations. Protected me without making it obvious. That's what colleagues do. No. She turned to face him now, and there was something in her eyes he'd never seen before. That's what good people do, and She stopped, seemed to struggle with the words. I'm not used to good people. The admission settled in the air between them, heavy and honest. Isabella, you asked why I care. Her voice was steady now, deliberate. I care because you're the only person in this building who's ever treated me like I'm more than my last name or my bank account or my position. You argue with me, you push back. You don't let me win just because of who I am. And when I'm drowning, which happens more than you'd think, you throw me a line without making me beg for it. Daniel stood very still. So when I saw you drowning, she continued, I did the same thing. Because that's what we do, apparently. We save each other. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. Even though we're not friends. The words landed with more weight than they should have. We're not, are we? Daniel said quietly. No. Then what are we? Isabella met his eyes. I don't know. The honesty in those 3 words was staggering. Isabella Laurent, who had an answer for everything, didn't know. Daniel took a breath. I'm still quitting. Something flickered across her face. Disappointment, maybe. She nodded. I know. But not tonight. Her eyes lifted to his. Tonight, he said, I'm going to go home and tuck my daughter in. And tomorrow, I'm going to come back here and finish the Morrison project. Why? Because someone I respect once told me I was too good to give up. He paused. And because I owe her the chance to watch me not fail. Isabella's breath caught, barely audible, but he heard it. After Morrison's done, he continued, we're going to have a conversation, a real one, about what happens next, about what this, he gestured between them, actually is. And you're not going to give me corporate answers. What if I don't have other answers? Then we'll figure them out together. He moved toward the door, stopped at the threshold. Sound fair? Isabella stared at him for a long moment. Then, impossibly, she smiled. A real smile, small and uncertain and completely genuine. That's the worst negotiation I've ever heard. Take it or leave it. I'll take it. Daniel nodded once, turned to go. Daniel? He looked back. She was still smiling, just barely. Thank you. For what? For coming back. The elevator ride down felt different this time. Lighter, somehow. The box was still waiting for him at the security desk. The guard had tucked it behind his station for safekeeping. Changed your mind? The guard asked as Daniel picked it up. Something like that. Outside, the April night was cool and clear. Traffic hummed on the street. The city was alive with ordinary Monday evening chaos. People heading home, heading out, heading anywhere but an empty office. Daniel loaded the box into his car, paused with his hand on the door. Looked back up at the building, at the lit window on the 17th floor. He could still see her silhouette, back at her desk, back to work. Not friends, but something. Maybe something more important than friends. He got in the car, started the engine, and drove toward home. Toward Emma. Toward the life he'd almost walked away from entirely, now somehow mattering more because he'd chosen to stay. The Morrison project still waited. The promotion still hung in limbo. Mitchell would still be Mitchell, and the office would still demand too much. But tomorrow, when he came in, someone would be watching. Someone who pushed him to be better. Someone who saw him clearly and helped anyway. Someone who, for reasons neither of them fully understood yet, cared. Daniel found himself smiling as he drove through the city lights, already planning how he'd tackle Morrison in the morning, already thinking about what he'd say when they had that real conversation. Whatever they were, whatever this strange, complicated thing between them was becoming, it felt like the beginning of something. And for the first time in months, the beginning didn't feel terrifying. It felt like possibility. The apartment was dark when Daniel got home, just after 9. He let himself in quietly, setting his keys in the bowl by the door out of habit. The place was small, 2 bedrooms, galley kitchen, living room that doubled as his office most nights, but it was theirs. Emma's light-up sneakers were kicked off by the couch, one of them upside down. Her backpack slumped against the wall, unzipped, with what looked like a math worksheet sticking out. His mother was asleep in the recliner, reading glasses still on, a mystery novel open on her lap. The TV played some late-night talk show on mute. Daniel touched her shoulder gently. "Mom." She startled awake, blinking. "Daniel, what time is it?" "Little after 9. Sorry I'm late." "You're always late." She said it without malice, just fact. She stood, gathered her things. Emma's been asleep since 7:30. She had chicken nuggets and broccoli, finished most of her homework. There's something about a science project due Friday that she's worried about. Science project? Something with volcanoes, I think. She mentioned it 3 times. His mother paused at the door, gave him a long look. "You okay? You look different." "Different how?" "Less like you're about to collapse." She patted his cheek. "Get some sleep, baby, and maybe actually talk to your daughter tomorrow." After she left, Daniel stood in the quiet apartment for a moment. Then he walked down the short hallway to Emma's room, eased the door open. She was sprawled across her twin bed, one arm flung over her favorite stuffed elephant, covers kicked half off. 7 years old and already too big for the toddler bed they'd started with, but she'd refused to give up the elephant. Daniel pulled the covers back up, tucked them around her shoulders. She stirred. "Dad?" "Hey, sweetheart, go back to sleep." "You're home early." Her eyes didn't open. "Early." 9 p.m. was early now. "Yeah," he said softly. "I am." "Grandma said you had a big project." "I do, but I wanted to say goodnight." Emma mumbled something that might have been okay and burrowed deeper into her pillow. Within seconds, her breathing evened out again. Daniel sat on the edge of her bed for a while, watching her sleep. She had his dark hair but her mother's delicate features. Sarah had been gone for 4 years now, cancer, fast, and merciless. And sometimes Daniel could barely remember what it felt like to not be doing this alone. The science project. Friday. He made a mental note, then corrected himself. No. He'd ask Emma about it tomorrow morning. At breakfast. Like a parent who was actually present. He kissed her forehead and left the door cracked open the way she liked it. In his own room, Daniel didn't bother changing, just kicked off his shoes and sat on the edge of the bed, pulling out his phone. 12 missed messages in the work channel. He ignored them all, opened a new note instead. Morrison project priorities, he typed. Then stopped. His mind kept going back to that office. To Isabella standing in the elevator, hand on the door, looking at him like he was making a mistake she couldn't prevent. To her office later, the way her voice had gone small when she'd talked about the Hartwell pitch. He pulled up his email, started a new message. To Isabella Laurent. Subject. Tomorrow, deleted it. Too formal. He tried again. Hey, thanks for tonight. See you tomorrow. Deleted that too. Too casual. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Unknown. You made it home? Daniel stared at the screen. Then, how did you get my number? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Isabella, HR directory. Are you home? Daniel, yeah, Emma's asleep. You're still at the office, aren't you? Isabella, maybe. Daniel, it's past 9. Isabella, so? Daniel, so go home, Isabella. Isabella, I have work. Daniel, it'll be there tomorrow. Isabella, Rich, coming from someone who was literally sleeping at his desk last week. He had been. Tuesday night, around 11. He'd just closed his eyes for a second and woken up at 1 a.m. with his face stuck to a spreadsheet. Daniel, that's different. Isabella, how? Daniel, I had a reason to be miserable. You're choosing it. The dots appeared and disappeared several times. Then, Isabella, good night, Daniel. He smiled despite himself. Daniel, night. He set the phone down, lay back on the bed fully clothed. Sleep came easier than it had in weeks. The next morning, Daniel woke to his alarm at 6 instead of 5, made Emma pancakes instead of letting her grab a granola bar, and sat across from her at their small kitchen table while she ate. Grandma said you have a science project? he asked. Emma looked up, surprised he was still there. Yeah, it's about volcanoes. What do you need to do? Build one. Make it erupt. She poked at her pancakes. I have the stuff, but I don't really know how to put it together. When's it due? Friday. That gave them 3 days. How about we work on it tonight, after I get home? Emma's eyes widened slightly. Really? The fact that she was shocked he'd be home to help with homework made something in Daniel's chest ache. Really, I'll be home by 6. We can order pizza and build a volcano. Okay. A small smile crept across her face. That sounds good. He dropped her off at school at 7:30, made it to the office by 8. The Morrison files were still in the trash where he'd left them. Daniel fished them out, smoothed the bent corners, and carried them back to his desk. Mitchell appeared at 8:15, coffee in hand, looking harried. Hayes. Good. You're here. We need to talk about Morrison. I know. I'm on it. The client wants a preliminary deck by Wednesday. I'll have it ready. Mitchell blinked, clearly expecting more resistance. Okay, good. Keep me updated. After he left, Daniel opened the files and got to work. Really work, not the exhausted slog he'd been doing for weeks. He pulled up the vendor analysis he'd been struggling with, started cross-referencing data points. An email popped up. From Isabella Laurent. Subject, vendor analysis. Attachment, Morrison_vendors_comprehensive.xlsx. He opened it. The spreadsheet was immaculate, color-coded, formulas checked, sources cited. Everything he'd been trying to compile for the last week. Done. Perfectly. Daniel stared at it for a long moment, then hit reply. Daniel, you did this last night after I told you to go home, didn't you? Her response came 30 seconds later. Isabella, I was already working on it. Use it or don't. Daniel, thank you. Isabella, don't make it weird. He smiled and imported her data into his deck. The morning disappeared into work that actually felt productive instead of futile. Around 11, his phone buzzed with a text. Isabella, conference room B, 5 minutes. Daniel, why? Isabella, just come. He found her in the conference room with 2 coffees and a paper bag from the good bakery 3 blocks away. She pushed 1 coffee across the table toward him. You didn't eat breakfast, she said. How do you know that? You never eat breakfast. Sit. Daniel sat, more confused than anything. Isabella pulled a croissant from the bag, set it on a napkin in front of him. Then she pulled out her laptop. Morrison preliminary deck, she said. Walk me through what you have so far. This is what you do for lunch? Would you prefer I critique your work via email? Fair point. Daniel pulled up his draft on his phone, started talking through the structure. Isabella listened, occasionally interjecting with questions that were sharp but not cruel. 15 minutes in, she stopped him. Your exec summary is buried on slide 8. It needs context first. Mitchell has the attention span of a goldfish. Lead with the recommendation, then justify it. That's backwards. That's effective. She turned her laptop around, showed him a restructured outline. See? Daniel studied it. She was right. The flow was cleaner, more direct. When did you do this? This morning. You restructured my entire deck this morning. I restructured the framework. You're still doing the actual work. She took a sip of coffee. I'm just making sure you don't sabotage yourself with bad organization. Is this what you meant by helping? Isabella's expression shifted just slightly. This is what colleagues do. You said we weren't colleagues. Not really. I said we weren't friends. Then what? Eat your croissant, Daniel. We have 30 minutes before my next meeting. They worked through lunch, her pushing him to tighten his logic, him pushing back when she overcomplicated things. It felt like sparring, but productive. Natural. By the time Isabella had to leave for her meeting, Daniel had a solid draft of the first half of the deck. Tomorrow? She asked, gathering her things. Same time? Bring your own coffee. I'm not a delivery service. But the next day she showed up with 2 coffees anyway. Wednesday arrived faster than Daniel expected. He worked late Tuesday night after helping Emma build the base of her volcano, cardboard and paper mache that covered half the kitchen table, and came in early Wednesday morning to finalize the Morrison deck. Isabella found him at 7:30, already at his desk. "You're here early," she said. "Could say the same about you." She had 2 coffees again, set one on his desk without comment. "I thought you weren't a delivery service," Daniel said. "I'm not. This is quality control. Can't have you presenting to Mitchell while running on break room sludge." He took the coffee. It was exactly how he liked it. 1 sugar, splash of cream. "How do you know how I take my coffee?" "I'm observant." That's mildly creepy. That's strategy. But there was the ghost of a smile on her face. The Morrison presentation was scheduled for 2 p.m. Daniel ran through it 3 times in the morning, tightening transitions, checking data. At 1:30, his phone buzzed. "Isabella, you ready?" Daniel, "As I'll ever be." Isabella, "You'll be fine. Mitchell's going to love it." Daniel, "How do you know?" Isabella, "Because I've seen your work when you're not drowning. It's good." He stared at the text for a moment. Daniel, "Will you be there in the meeting?" Isabella, "Do you want me there?" Daniel, "Yeah, I think I do." Isabella, "Then I'll be there." The meeting room filled up at 2. Mitchell, 3 VPs Daniel only saw in large meetings, and Isabella, who slipped in last and took a seat in the back corner. She caught Daniel's eye, gave him the smallest nod. "All right, Hayes," Mitchell said, checking his watch. "Show us what you've got." "We have 30 minutes. Daniel launched into it. The presentation flowed better than any he'd given in months, maybe years. The restructured format worked. Hook them with the recommendation, support with data, close with implementation steps. Mitchell asked 3 questions, all of which Daniel had answers for. One of the VPs nodded approvingly at the vendor analysis, called it thorough. 25 minutes in, Daniel was wrapping up when Mitchell interrupted. "This is good work, Hayes, really good." He glanced at the other VPs. "I think we're ready to move forward with this approach." "I'll coordinate with the client," Daniel said. "Actually," Mitchell leaned back in his chair, "I'd like Laurent to take point on client communication." The room went quiet. Daniel's stomach dropped. "Sir, you've done excellent groundwork here, but Isabella has the existing relationship with their executive team. Makes sense for her to drive the final pitch." Mitchell looked at Isabella. "You good with that?" Isabella's face was unreadable. "Of course." "Great. Hayes, get her up to speed on the details. Laurent, I want you presenting to the client Friday morning." The meeting dispersed. Daniel gathered his laptop with hands that felt numb. 3 weeks of work. The presentation he'd almost quit over, and Mitchell was handing it to someone else. He made it back to his desk, sat down heavily. His phone buzzed. "Isabella. My office. Now." He didn't want to go, didn't want to hear whatever she was going to say, that this was business, that he should have expected it, that this was just how things worked at their level. But he went anyway. Isabella was pacing when he arrived, her office door open. She gestured him in, closed the door behind him. "I didn't know he was going to do that," she said immediately. "It's fine." "It's not fine. That was your project. And now it's yours." Daniel kept his voice level. "Congratulations." "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Shut down." She stopped pacing, faced him. "You're angry. Be angry." "What good would that do?" "It would be honest." Something in Daniel snapped. "Fine. You want honest? I'm furious. I'm furious that I spent 3 weeks on this, that I came in early and stayed late and actually gave a damn, and Mitchell still doesn't trust me to close it. I'm furious that the one thing I thought I could actually accomplish just got yanked away. And I'm furious that you're standing here acting like you're on my side when you're the one benefiting from it." Isabella didn't flinch. "Are you done?" "I don't know." "Are you going to tell me it's just business?" "No." She pulled out her phone, started typing. "I'm going to tell Mitchell I can't take the client presentation." Daniel blinked. "What?" "You did the work. You should present it." Isabella, "I'm serious. He'll just assign it to someone else. Then I'll recommend you." "Why would he listen to you?" "Because I'm Isabella Laurent and people listen when I talk." She finished typing, hit send. "There, done." "You can't just—" "I can." And I did. She set her phone down, looked at him directly. You earned this, Daniel. I'm not going to let Mitchell take it from you because he's too lazy to build new client relationships. Daniel's anger deflated, replaced by something more complicated. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. Why? Isabella was quiet for a moment, then softer. Because you would have done the same for me. Would he have? A week ago, Daniel wouldn't have been sure, but now, standing in her office, remembering the Hartwell pitch and the quiet fixes and the way she'd said someone should care, yeah, he said, I would have. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, made a face. Mitchell wants to meet, probably to tell me I'm being difficult. Want me to come with? And give him 2 difficult people to manage? A wry smile. I'll handle it. Go work on your client presentation. Friday morning, 9 a.m. Don't screw it up. Yes, ma'am. He was halfway out the door when she called his name. Daniel? He turned back. Isabella looked like she was choosing her words carefully. Earlier, when you said I was benefiting from this, I was angry. I didn't mean, no, you were right. She crossed her arms, that defensive posture he recognized. I do benefit. That's how this works. The people at the top get the opportunities, even when they don't earn them. And I've spent my entire career trying to prove I'm more than my last name. But the truth is, my last name opens doors. It always has. Daniel stepped back into the office. Isabella, I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I'm telling you because you deserve to know that I see it. The unfairness, the way the system's rigged. She met his eyes. And I'm telling you that I'm not going to be part of that. Not with you. The admission hung between them, weighted with more meaning than the words themselves carried. What changed? Daniel asked quietly. A week ago, you would have taken that client presentation without a second thought. A week ago, Isabella stopped, seemed to reconsider. A week ago, I didn't know you were ready to walk away from everything because people like Mitchell kept taking credit for your work. And that matters to you? Apparently so. Why? I don't know. She said it like a confession. I've been trying to figure that out for months. Daniel's heart was doing something strange in his chest. Months? Don't make me say it. Say what? Isabella looked away toward the window, the city beyond. When she spoke again, her voice was careful, controlled. You asked me last night what we are if we're not friends. Yeah. I still don't have an answer, but I know what we're not. She looked back at him. We're not people who screw each other over for career advancement. We're not people who let Mitchell play games with other people's work. And we're not people who pretend not to care when we clearly do. Care about what? Each other. She said it simply, like stating a fact. Whether we like it or not. The words settled into the space between them, changing its shape. Daniel started, then stopped. What was he supposed to say to that? That he'd been thinking about her more than he should? That somewhere between the arguments and the competition and the late nights, she'd become the person he looked for first in every meeting? That walking away from this job had felt impossible until he'd thought about never seeing her again? His phone buzzed. Text from Mitchell. Hayes, client presentation still yours. Laurent insisted. Don't make me regret it. Daniel showed her the screen. Isabella smiled, a real one, reaching her eyes. Told you people listen when I talk. Thank you. Stop thanking me. It's weird. Then stop doing things worth thanking you for. Not a chance. She glanced at her computer screen. I have a 3 o'clock. You should go prepare. Daniel nodded but didn't move immediately. There was something else, something unspoken still hanging in the air. Finally, he said, when this is over, the Morrison project. We're still having that conversation, right? About what we are? Yeah. Isabella held his gaze. Yeah, we are. Good. He left before he could say anything else, anything that might complicate this already impossibly complicated thing between them. The rest of Wednesday and all of Thursday blurred into preparation. Daniel refined the deck, practiced his delivery, coordinated with the client's team. Isabella checked in twice, once via text asking if he needed anything, once appearing at his desk at 7 p.m. with Thai food. You're still here, she said, setting down the bag. Client presentations tomorrow, which you'll nail, but not if you pass out from hunger. She pulled out containers, pad thai, spring rolls, That green curry he'd mentioned liking once in a meeting 6 months ago. How do you remember this stuff? Daniel asked. Remember what? That I like green curry. Isabella paused, chopsticks halfway to her mouth. I don't know, I just do. They ate at his desk, talking through last-minute adjustments to the presentation. At some point, the office had emptied around them, just the two of them, Thai food, and the quiet hum of after-hours silence. Can I ask you something? Daniel said. Depends on the question. The Hartwell pitch, when you said I protected you, why did that matter so much? Isabella set down her chopsticks, considering. Because no one else would have. My entire life, people have either wanted something from me or wanted to take me down. That's what happens when your family has money. You learn not to trust people's motives. But you trust mine? I don't know if trust is the right word. She met his eyes. But I believe you when you say things. That's rare for me. What made me different? You argued with me about the Kendrick strategy in front of the entire department. Do you remember that? Daniel did. His third week in the division, some meeting about market positioning. Isabella had proposed an approach Daniel thought was overcomplicated. He'd said so, out loud, in front of everyone. You told me I was wrong, Isabella continued, to my face, in public, and you didn't do it to make yourself look good or to score points with Mitchell. You did it because you actually believed your approach was better. It wasn't, though. Yours worked. That's not the point. The point is you treated me like a person who could be wrong instead of an untouchable VP who needed managing. A small smile. It was refreshing. That's a low bar. You'd be surprised. They finished eating in comfortable silence. Daniel checked his watch. 8:30. Emma would already be asleep. He'd missed dinner again, but at least he'd made it home for the volcano project last night. They'd gotten the structure built, painted. Tonight his mother would help her mix the baking soda and vinegar for the eruption test. You're thinking about Emma, Isabella said. How did you? You get this look, like you're somewhere else. I missed dinner with her, again. But you were there yesterday. How do you know that? Isabella's expression shifted, caught. You mentioned it this morning. He hadn't, but he let it go. One more day, she said. Morrison presents tomorrow, then you can breathe. And then we have that conversation. Daniel, I'm not letting you dodge it this time. I'm not dodging. Then what are you doing? Isabella stood, started gathering the empty containers. I'm trying to figure out how to have a conversation I've never had before. What kind of conversation? The honest kind. She looked at him, and for once there was no armor, just uncertainty. I don't know how to do this. Do what? Whatever this is. With you. She gestured vaguely between them. I don't have a framework for it. It doesn't fit into any category I understand. Daniel stood too. They were close now, the desk between them barely a barrier. Maybe it doesn't need to fit a category. Everything fits a category. Not everything. Daniel, we're not colleagues, we're not friends, we're not rivals anymore. At least, not really. He took a breath. So maybe we're just two people who care about each other, and we figure out what that means as we go. Isabella stared at him. That's terrifying. I know. I don't do terrifying. Yes, you do. You just do it in boardrooms instead of... He stopped, catching himself before he said something they weren't ready for. Instead of what? Her voice was quiet. Personal life. I don't have much of one of those. Neither do I. So we're both disasters. Pretty much. Isabella laughed, small, surprised, genuine. This is a terrible idea. What is? Whatever we're doing. Probably. We should stop. Should we? She didn't answer, just looked at him with those dark eyes, uncertain and honest in a way he'd never seen her before. Daniel's phone buzzed, shattering the moment. Text from his mother. Emma wants to show you her volcano. She's still awake. Come home. Reality crashed back in. I have to go, he said. Isabella nodded, stepping back. Yeah, client presentation tomorrow. You need sleep. Right. He gathered his things, headed for the door, stopped. Isabella? Yeah? Friday. After the presentation. Dinner? The question hung in the air, shifting everything. Dinner, she repeated. Or lunch. or coffee, or he was rambling now. I'm asking you out badly, but I'm asking. Isabella's expression was unreadable. Then, so softly, okay. Okay? Friday, after your presentation. A small smile. Don't screw it up. The presentation or the dinner? Both. Daniel left before he could make this more awkward than it already was, but he couldn't stop smiling the entire drive home. Emma was waiting up, her volcano on the kitchen table, now painted to look like an actual mountain with green slopes and a brown peak. Dad, watch! She poured the vinegar into the baking soda mixture. The reaction was immediate. Foam erupting from the top, spilling down the sides in a cascade of white bubbles. Emma shrieked with delight. It works! It really works! Daniel watched his daughter dance around the kitchen, her joy infectious and pure, and felt something settle in his chest. This was what mattered, not the Morrison project or the client presentation or even whatever was happening with Isabella. But also, and this was the new part, he could have both. The job didn't have to consume everything. Emma didn't have to lose him to the office. He could choose both. It's perfect, sweetheart, he said, pulling her into a hug. You're going to get an A. Will you come to the science fair Friday afternoon? Friday. The client presentation was at 9. It would be done by 11, maybe noon if things ran long. What time's the fair? He asked. 2 o'clock. I'll be there. Emma pulled back, suspicious. Really? Really, I promise. You said that about the school play. The words hit harder than she probably meant them to. I know, but I'm saying it again, and this time I mean it. I'll be there. Emma studied his face, 7-year-old skepticism warring with hope. Finally, okay. Daniel helped her clean up the volcano mess, got her into bed, read her 2 chapters from the book they'd been working through, a fantasy thing about dragons that Emma loved and Daniel found mildly incomprehensible. By the time she fell asleep, it was after 10. He sat in his own room, laptop open, running through the presentation one more time. But his mind kept drifting. Dinner with Isabella. Friday night. Not colleagues. Not friends. Something else. His phone buzzed. Isabella. Stop overthinking it and go to sleep. You're going to be great tomorrow. Daniel. Overthinking what? Isabella. Everything. It's what you do. Daniel. You don't know that. Isabella. I know you. The words stopped him. Daniel. Do you? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, Isabella. I'm starting to. Daniel set the phone down, heart doing that strange thing again. Friday morning came too fast. Daniel woke at 5, showered, put on his best suit, the navy one he saved for important meetings. Checked his presentation 17 times on the drive to the office. Isabella was already there when he arrived at 7, waiting in the lobby with 2 coffees. Couldn't sleep either? Daniel asked. Who said I went home? Isabella, relax. I'm joking. I went home at 9. She handed him the coffee. You ready? Ask me after it's over. They rode the elevator up together, quiet. The client presentation wasn't until 9, but Daniel wanted time to set up the conference room, check the technology, make sure nothing could go wrong. At 8:30, the client team started arriving. At 8:45, Mitchell appeared with the VPs. At 9 on the dot, Daniel launched into his presentation. It went perfectly. Better than perfectly. The client asked engaged questions. The VPs nodded at key points. Mitchell actually smiled. By 9:45, the client's CEO was shaking Daniel's hand, saying they were ready to move forward. Outstanding work, Hayes, Mitchell said after the room cleared. This is the kind of thinking we need more of. Thank you, sir. I mean it. We should talk about your development path. Maybe after things settle with Morrison. Development path. That was code for promotion. After Mitchell left, Daniel stood in the empty conference room, still processing. Isabella appeared in the doorway. Congratulations, she said. I think I just got promised a promotion. You did. I heard him tell the VPs this morning that you were director material. He said that? He did. She smiled. Told you you'd be great. Daniel felt like he should say something profound, but all that came out was, thank you For everything. Stop thanking me. Never. Isabella's smile widened, just a fraction. We still on for tonight? Daniel's stomach dropped. Emma's science fair is at 2. I promised her I'd be there. So be there. But dinner, I can wait until after a science fair, Daniel. You sure? I've waited this long. She checked her watch. It's 10. You have 4 hours to decompress before you need to be there. Go home. Take a shower. Actually breathe for once. What are you going to do? Work. It's what I do. But there was no edge to it. Isabella, go. I'll text you later about dinner. Daniel went home, showered, changed into jeans and a sweater. Arrived at Emma's school at 1:50. Found her standing by her volcano with a presentation board explaining the science behind eruptions. Dad! She looked shocked to actually see him. You came! I told you I would. The fair was chaos. Kids everywhere. Proud parents. Teachers with clipboards. Emma walked Daniel through her project, explaining the chemical reaction with the kind of enthusiasm only a 7-year-old could muster. When the judging happened, she won 3rd place in her grade. On the drive home, Emma was quiet for a moment. Then, Dad? Yeah, sweetheart? Are you going to keep being home more? The question lodged in Daniel's throat. I'm going to try. Grandma says you have a new friend helping you at work. Grandma talks too much. Is she nice? Your friend? Daniel thought about Isabella. Sharp, complicated, impossible Isabella. Yeah, she's nice. Good. You need more friends. Out of the mouths of children. He dropped Emma at his mother's for the evening. He'd pick her up later and headed home to change for dinner. Isabella had texted an address, a restaurant he didn't recognize. Upscale, judging by the neighborhood. Daniel, this looks expensive. Isabella, it is. Daniel, I can't afford. Isabella, my treat. Be there at 7. Daniel, that's not. Isabella, Daniel, let me take you to dinner, please. He stared at that last word. Please. Isabella Laurent didn't say please often. Daniel, okay. 7. He showed up at 6:55, still not entirely sure what he was walking into. The restaurant was elegant without being pretentious. Dim lighting, quiet atmosphere, tables spaced far enough apart for actual conversation. Isabella was already seated, back to the wall, wearing a dark green dress that made Daniel forget how to breathe properly. Hey, he said, sliding into the seat across from her. Hey, yourself. She was nervous. He could see it in the way she twisted her napkin. How was the science fair? Emma won 3rd place. That's great. She's thrilled. He paused. She asked about you. About me? My mother may have mentioned I had a friend helping me at work. Isabella's expression shifted. Friend. 7-year-olds don't have nuance. And what would you have told her if she was older? Daniel met her eyes. I don't know. What would you want me to say? That's cheating. I asked first. Fine. He took a breath. I'd tell her that there's someone at work who challenges me and frustrates me and somehow makes me want to be better at everything. Someone who sees the worst parts of my life and helps anyway. Someone I can't stop thinking about, even when I probably should. Isabella went very still. Your turn, Daniel said quietly. She took a sip of water, buying time, then, I'd tell her that there's someone who treats me like a person instead of a bank account. Someone who argues with me without being intimidated. Someone who made me realize I've been lonely for a very long time without knowing it. The words hung between them, honest and terrifying. So, Daniel said, this is us being honest. Apparently. It's weird. Very. Do we keep going, or? We keep going, Isabella said firmly. I didn't get dressed up to chicken out now. You look. Daniel stopped, tried again. That dress is. Don't get weird about it. Too late. She smiled, and something in the air relaxed. They ordered food, fell into conversation that felt easier than it should have. Work, at first, safe territory, but then other things. Emma's science fair. Isabella's impossible family. Daniel's terrible apartment. The ways they'd both ended up alone in a city full of people. Somewhere around dessert, Isabella said, Can I ask you something? Yeah. When did you know? Know what? That this. She gestured between them. Was something. Daniel thought about it. The elevator. When you wouldn't let me leave. That was Monday. Yeah. That's 4 days ago. I'm a quick study. He paused. What about you? Isabella looked down at her wine glass. The Hartwell pitch. When you fixed my airs and didn't tell anyone. That was November. Yeah. Daniel's breath caught. You've known since November? Known is a strong word. Suspected, maybe. Hoped, possibly. She met his eyes. Been absolutely terrified of. Definitely. Why terrified? Because I don't do this. I don't... She stopped, started over. I've spent my entire life keeping people at a distance. It's safer that way. But you... Her voice went soft. You made distance feel lonely instead of safe. Daniel reached across the table, found her hand. She didn't pull away. For what it's worth, he said, I'm terrified too. Good. We can be terrified together. Is that what we're doing? Isabella's fingers tightened on his. I think so. They stayed until the restaurant closed, talking until the waitstaff started pointedly stacking chairs. Outside, the April night was cool and clear. Can I drive you home, Wolf? Daniel asked. I have my car. Then can I walk you to it? Isabella smiled. Such a gentleman. Her car was parked 2 blocks away. They walked slowly, in no hurry to end this. At her car, Isabella turned, looked up at him. So, she said. So. This was... Yeah, she laughed. We're bad at this. Terrible. Want to try again tomorrow? Absolutely. Isabella unlocked her car but didn't get in yet. Daniel? Yeah? I'm glad you didn't quit. Me too. She kissed him, quickly, almost shyly, then got in her car before he could respond. Daniel stood on the sidewalk, watching her taillights disappear, feeling like the world had just rearranged itself into something new. His phone buzzed. Isabella, still terrified. Daniel, same. Isabella, good, see you Monday. Daniel, can't wait. He drove home, picked up Emma from his mother's, carried his sleeping daughter into the apartment, tucked her into bed, kissed her forehead, stood in her doorway watching her breathe. Everything had changed in less than a week. The job that was killing him felt manageable now. The future that looked empty had possibility. And Isabella, complicated, brilliant, impossible Isabella, was somehow part of it all. Monday morning, Daniel thought. Monday morning, they'd figure out what came next. But for tonight, standing in his daughter's doorway with the taste of Isabella's kiss still on his lips, Daniel let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, he could have this. All of it. Monday morning felt different. Daniel showed up at 7:30 with coffee for himself. Isabella had texted earlier saying she had an 8 a.m. with the executive team and found his desk exactly as he'd left it Friday afternoon. Organized, manageable. The Morrison project was moving into implementation, which meant less chaos and more maintenance. He should have felt relieved. Instead, he felt restless. Emma had asked about Isabella again over breakfast, unprompted. Is your friend coming to my next science fair? I don't know, sweetheart. Why? I want to meet her. She sounds nice. Daniel had choked on his coffee. How do you know she's a she? Emma had given him that look, the one that said he was being obtuse. Grandma said so. And you get all weird when you talk about her. 7 years old, and already reading him like a book. Now, sitting at his desk, pretending to review implementation timelines, Daniel kept checking his phone. Isabella hadn't texted since Sunday night, just a simple sleep well that had made him smile like an idiot for 10 minutes. This was ridiculous. He was 32, not 16. He could go a few hours without hearing from someone. His phone buzzed. Isabella. Executive meeting ran over. Lunch? Daniel tried not to type back too quickly. Failed. Daniel. Where? Isabella. Somewhere we won't run into the entire office. I'll pick you up at noon. At 11:58, Isabella appeared at his desk wearing a charcoal blazer and an expression that Daniel was learning to recognize, the one that meant she was working through something complicated in her head. Ready? She asked. Where are we going? You'll see. They ended up at a small cafe 15 minutes from the office, the kind of place with mismatched furniture and art on the walls that looked like it came from local students, definitely not Isabella's usual scene. How did you find this place? Daniel asked as they slid into a corner booth. I didn't. My assistant recommended it when I said I needed somewhere quiet. Isabella pulled off her blazer, rolled up her sleeves. The gesture felt significant somehow, like she was shedding armor. The executive meeting was about departmental restructuring. Daniel's stomach tightened. What kind of restructuring? The kind where they're creating a new senior director position, strategy and client relations. She met his eyes. Mitchell recommended you. What? Apparently your Morrison presentation made an impression. They want to fast-track your promotion. Isabella's expression was unreadable. You'd be reporting directly to the VP level instead of through Mitchell. This should have been good news. Great news. The kind of news Daniel would have killed for 6 months ago. But? He asked, because there was clearly a but. But the position would require significant travel, client sites, quarterly strategy sessions in other offices. They're estimating 60% travel time. There it was. 60%, Daniel repeated. That's what they said. That's 3 weeks out of every month. I know. Daniel sat back, processed. A promotion. Director level. Real money, real influence, the kind of opportunity that didn't come around twice. And it would mean missing Emma's school plays, science fairs, bedtime stories. It would mean going back to the exact life he'd been ready to quit a week ago. What did you say? He asked. In the meeting? Isabella was quiet for a moment. I said you'd need to consider your personal circumstances before accepting. You said that in front of the executive team? I did. Isabella. They need to know that good people have lives outside of work. Someone should have said it for me years ago. She picked up her menu, studied it with more focus than it deserved. But the offer's real. Mitchell will formally present it to you this week. The waitress came, took their orders. After she left, Daniel said, Can I ask you something? Always. If I were to take this position, hypothetically, what would that mean? For us? The question hung in the air, heavy with implications neither of them had fully addressed yet. Isabella set down her water glass carefully. That depends on what us means. That's not an answer. Because I don't have one. She looked at him, and there was something vulnerable in her expression. We went on one date, Daniel. A good date, maybe even a great date, but one date. I don't know what we are yet. Then let's figure it out. How? By being honest. Daniel leaned forward. I like you. I don't know when it started or how it happened, but I do. And I think you like me, even though you're terrified of admitting it. I'm not terrified. You're petrified. Isabella opened her mouth to argue, then stopped, laughed, short, surprised. Okay, maybe a little. Why? Because she struggled with the words. Because the last time I let myself care about someone, they turned out to care more about my trust fund than me. And the time before that, they wanted access to my family's connections. And the time before that, she stopped. It's a pattern. People see Isabella Laurent, billionaire heiress, not just Isabella. I don't see your bank account when I look at you. What do you see? Someone who works too hard. Someone who's brilliant and exhausting in equal measure. Someone who pretends not to care about things she cares about deeply. He paused. Someone who bought me Thai food because she remembered an offhand comment from 6 months ago. Isabella's cheeks colored slightly. That's not... It is, though. You pay attention to people in ways you pretend not to. You helped me for months without expecting anything in return. That's not a trust fund. That's just you. You make me sound better than I am. Or maybe you're worse at hiding who you are than you think. Their food arrived. Sandwiches neither of them had really wanted. They picked at them in silence for a moment. If you took the promotion, Isabella said quietly, I'd be happy for you. It's what you deserve. But I'd also know that we'd barely see each other. You'd be traveling constantly. I'm already here 80 hours a week, and whatever this is, she gestured between them. It would probably die before it had a chance to become anything. The honesty of it gutted him. So what do we do? Daniel asked. I don't know. What do you want to do? He stopped, surprised by how clear the answer was. I want to be there when Emma needs me. I want a job that doesn't consume my entire life. And I want to see where this goes with you because for the first time in years, I actually care about something that isn't just survival. Isabella stared at him. You're going to turn it down. Probably. That's insane. Do you know what this kind of opportunity could mean for your career? Yeah, and do you know what it would mean for my life? Daniel, I've spent 4 years choosing work over everything else, telling myself it would pay off eventually, that if I just worked hard enough, sacrificed enough, it would all be worth it. He shook his head. But it wasn't. It almost cost me my daughter. It did cost me. He stopped, catching himself. Cost you what? Isabella asked softly. The ability to remember what it feels like to want something for myself. Not for Emma, not for financial security, not to prove something, just because I want it. And what do you want? The question was simple. The answer wasn't. I want to take Emma to school in the mornings and be home for dinner most nights. I want to do work I'm proud of without it destroying me. And I want... He met her eyes. I want to know what it's like to be with someone who sees me. Actually sees me. Not the father, not the employee, just me. Isabella's breath caught. Daniel, I'm not asking you to be that person. Not yet. We barely know each other outside of work, and maybe this whole thing is crazy. But I want the chance to find out. The silence that followed felt enormous. Then Isabella said, voice barely above a whisper, What if I've wanted that too? For longer than I should admit? Daniel's heart stopped. How long? Do you remember the Bradshaw account last spring? The one where we stayed until 2 a.m. arguing about pricing strategy? You brought me coffee at midnight, not the break room coffee. Actual good coffee from that place on 5th that's only open late on weekends. You'd gone out of your way in the middle of a crisis to get me something that didn't taste like burnt water. She was looking at her hands now, not at him. And when I asked why, you said, because you're working hard and you deserve decent coffee. Like it was the most obvious thing in the world. That was almost a year ago. I know. Isabella, I told myself it didn't mean anything, that I was reading too much into a kind gesture. But then you kept doing things like that, small things, remembering how I take my coffee, covering for me when I had to leave early for a family thing I didn't want to attend, sending me articles you thought I'd find interesting. She finally looked up. You treated me like I mattered, not my position or my connections, just me. Daniel felt like the air had been knocked out of his lungs. Why didn't you say anything? Because it was safer not to. Because I've spent my whole life building walls, and you were dismantling them without even trying, and that was terrifying. Is it still terrifying? Absolutely. But she was smiling when she said it. But apparently I'm doing it anyway. Daniel reached across the table, found her hand. Her fingers were cold, trembling slightly. We're really doing this, he said. Not a question. I think we are. It's probably going to be a disaster. Almost definitely. I have a 7-year-old who comes first, always. I wouldn't expect anything else. And I'm turning down the promotion. That's not negotiable. Isabella's grip on his hand tightened. I'm not asking you to choose between me and your career. I'm not. I'm choosing between different versions of my life. And the version where I get to be Emma's dad and maybe figure out what this is with you, that's the one I want. Even if it means staying in your current position? Even then, he paused, though I should probably still look for something with better hours. You could go to a smaller firm, less pressure, more flexibility. You've thought about this. I've thought about a lot of things. Isabella's cheeks colored, including what it might be like if you weren't at Meridian anymore. And I kept coming back to the same question. Would I rather have you down the hall arguing with me about strategy, or would I rather have you somewhere else, available for dinner on actual weeknights? What did you decide? I don't know yet. Ask me again in a few months. They finished lunch, drove back to the office in Isabella's car, a sleek black sedan that probably cost more than Daniel made in 2 years. The ride was quiet, but comfortable. Natural. In the parking garage before they got out, Isabella said, Daniel? Yeah? When Mitchell offers you the promotion, and he will, don't turn it down immediately. Why not? Because you should negotiate. Even if you're not taking it, make them work for it. Make them understand what they're asking you to give up. That seems manipulative. That's strategic. She smiled. Trust me on this. I do. The words came out before Daniel thought about them, but he meant them. He did trust her. Somewhere in the chaos of the last week, trust had stopped being a question. Isabella's expression softened. We should get back before people start talking. People are already talking. Probably, but let's not give them more ammunition. They walked into the building separately, took different elevators up. Professional, appropriate. Daniel's phone buzzed before he even made it back to his desk. Isabella, that was harder than it should have been. Daniel, what was? Isabella, not kissing you in the parking garage. He stopped walking, read the text 3 times to make sure he wasn't imagining it. Daniel, we're at work. Isabella, I'm aware. Daniel, are you flirting with me? Isabella, maybe. Is it working? Daniel, absolutely. Isabella, good. Now stop texting and get back to work. Some of us have actual jobs to do. Daniel, yes, ma'am. He was smiling like an idiot when he sat down at his desk. Probably looked insane, didn't care. Mitchell appeared at 3 o'clock, right as Daniel was wrapping up a status call. Hayes, got a minute? Sure. They went to Mitchell's office, corner space, glass walls, the kind of place where people made decisions that affected other people's lives without having to look them in the eye while doing it. The executive team was impressed with Morrison, Mitchell said, settling into his chair. Very impressed. Thank you, sir. Which is why we'd like to offer you the senior director position. Strategy and client relations, reporting directly to VP level. It's a significant step up. Daniel had practiced this conversation in his head during the drive back from lunch. Stay calm, be professional, don't burn bridges. I'm honored, he said. Can you tell me more about the role? Mitchell launched into the details, travel expectations, compensation package, team size. It was everything Daniel had thought he wanted, packaged up with a bow. What kind of travel are we talking about? Daniel asked. Specifically, roughly 3 weeks a month, give or take. Some months might be lighter, others heavier, depending on client needs. And flexibility? If I needed to be back for personal obligations? Mitchell's expression shifted slightly. We try to accommodate when possible, but the role requires significant client face time. That's not always flexible. I have a daughter, 7 years old. What happens when she has a school event or gets sick? We have systems in place for that. Emergency PTO, backup support. I'm not asking about emergencies. I'm asking about being present for her normal life. Mitchell leaned back, studied Daniel. This is a demanding position. That's why it comes with the compensation it does. If you're not prepared for that level of commitment, I'm prepared for commitment, Daniel interrupted. I've been committed to this company for 3 years. I've worked weekends, holidays, late nights. I've missed my daughter's birthday and her school play and more dinners than I can count. I'm asking what happens when I try to do both. Be excellent at this job and be present for my child. The honest answer? It's difficult. Not impossible, but difficult. How difficult? Mitchell was quiet for a moment. Then, surprising Daniel completely, he said, I have 2 kids. Teenagers now. My daughter graduates high school in June, and I couldn't tell you the last time I made it to one of her soccer games. He sighed. This job requires sacrifices, Hayes. That's the reality. And if I'm not willing to make those specific sacrifices, then this might not be the right role for you. The honesty was refreshing, at least. Daniel respected that. Can I have some time to think about it? He asked. Take the week, but I need an answer by Friday. Daniel stood, shook Mitchell's hand. Thank you, sir. I appreciate the opportunity. Back at his desk, he sat for a long moment, staring at nothing. His phone buzzed. Isabella, how did it go? Daniel, exactly like you said it would. He gave me until Friday. Isabella, are you okay? Daniel, yeah, actually I am. Because he was. The decision felt clear in a way that most things in his life didn't. He was going to turn it down. But first, he was going to make Mitchell understand exactly what he was asking for. That evening, Daniel picked up Emma from his mother's at 5:30, early for once, and took her out for pizza at her favorite place with the arcade games and the animatronic animals that sang off-key. Dad, you're being weird, Emma said around a mouthful of pepperoni. Weird how? Happy weird. You keep smiling at your phone. Daniel hadn't realized he'd been checking it. Sorry, sweetheart. Is it your friend, the one from work? Maybe, Emma grinned. Grandma says you have a girlfriend. Grandma needs to mind her own business. So you do have a girlfriend. I have a friend who happens to be a girl. It's complicated. Why? Because adult relationships are complicated. That's a dumb answer. She wasn't wrong. Daniel tried again. Because we work together, and we're trying to figure out if we want to be more than friends, and that takes time. Do you like her? Yeah, I do. Does she like you? I think so. Then why is it complicated? Because... Daniel stopped, out of the mouths of children. You know what? You're right. It shouldn't be that complicated. Emma went back to her pizza, satisfied with this answer. Daniel pulled out his phone. Daniel, my daughter thinks we're overcomplicating this. Isabella, smart kid. Daniel. She asked if you were my girlfriend. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Isabella. What did you tell her? Daniel. That we're figuring it out. Isabella. Diplomatic. Daniel. I try. Isabella. For what it's worth, I've never been anyone's girlfriend before. Not really. The admission surprised him. Daniel. Never? Isabella. I've dated, but girlfriend implies something more serious, something real. I've never had that. Daniel. Why not? Isabella. Because I was waiting for someone who saw me instead of what I could offer them. Apparently I'm patient. Daniel's heart did that thing again. Daniel. For what it's worth, I think you'd be a great girlfriend. Isabella. You don't know that. I'm terrible at this stuff. I work too much. I'm controlling about stupid things, and I have approximately 0 experience with normal relationship things. Daniel. What's normal anyway? Isabella. Other people seem to figure it out. Daniel. Other people don't have our history. Maybe we get to make our own normal. The dots appeared and stayed there for a long time before her response came through. Isabella. I'd like that. Wednesday brought rain, the kind of gray, steady downpour that made the city feel smaller and quieter. Daniel worked from home in the morning, helping Emma with her reading homework before school, then headed into the office around 10. Isabella's car was already in the garage. Of course it was. He found her in her office, door open, on a call that sounded tense. She saw him pass, held up one finger. He nodded, headed to his own desk. 10 minutes later, she appeared. Client crisis, she said without preamble. The Hendricks account is threatening to walk because their project manager quit and we haven't assigned a replacement. That's not your problem. It is if they're one of my strategic accounts. She rubbed her temples. I have a call with their CEO at 2. Want to help me prep? Always. They worked through lunch in her office, door closed, building a retention strategy that involved some creative account restructuring and a lot of Isabella's formidable negotiation skills. By the time 2 o'clock rolled around, they had a solid plan. Daniel sat in on the call, mostly listening as Isabella worked her magic. She was different in client mode, warmer, more personable, but no less sharp. She acknowledged the client's concerns, offered solutions, made promises she could keep. By the end of the call, the CEO had agreed to stay on for another quarter with revised terms. After she hung up, Isabella slumped in her chair. I hate retention calls. You're good at them. That doesn't mean I enjoy them. She looked at him. Thanks for sitting in. Anytime. I mean it. You're good at this, the strategy side. You should be doing more of it. Not if it means traveling 3 weeks a month. Isabella was quiet for a moment. Then, have you made your decision about the promotion? Yeah. And? I'm turning it down. She didn't look surprised. Friday, like Mitchell asked? Yeah, going to lay out exactly why, make it clear what they're asking people to sacrifice. That's risky. Maybe, but someone should say it. Isabella smiled, small, proud. You're braver than you think. Or stupider. Definitely not stupid. She glanced at her door, still closed. Can I tell you something? Anything. I've been thinking about what you said, about making our own normal. Daniel's pulse kicked up. Yeah, I want that. Whatever it looks like. Even if it's messy and complicated and completely different from anything I've done before. Isabella, I'm not good at this, she interrupted, at being vulnerable or open or any of the things that normal relationships probably need, but I want to try. With you. The words hung in the air between them, enormous in their honesty. Daniel stood, crossed to her side of the desk. Isabella looked up at him, uncertainty written across her face. You don't have to be good at it, he said quietly. You just have to be honest. I'm trying. I know. He reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the first time he'd touched her since Friday night. And for the record, I think you're better at this than you think. You're biased. Completely. Isabella stood, and suddenly they were very close. Close enough that Daniel could see the exact moment she made a decision. She kissed him. It was different from Friday, less hesitant, more certain. Her hands came up to his chest, his went to her waist, and for a moment, the office and the job and everything else disappeared. When they pulled apart, both breathing unevenly, Isabella said, We're at work. You started it. I know. I'm reckless like that. Since when? Since you. She stepped back, smoothing her blazer. We should probably get back to work? Yeah. But neither of them moved. Isabella? I really like you. She smiled, genuine, unguarded. I really like you too. Good. Just wanted to make sure we were on the same page. We are. She glanced at the window, at the rain still coming down. Are you free tonight? Emma has a play date until 7. Why? Come over after. I'll make dinner. You cook? I heat things up. There's a difference. Daniel laughed. Sounds perfect. Isabella's apartment was in one of those buildings Daniel had only ever seen from the outside. Doorman, marble lobby, elevators that didn't make concerning noises. Her place was on the 23rd floor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. This is... Daniel stopped in the doorway, taking it in. Too much? Isabella asked, suddenly uncertain. Beautiful. The apartment was surprisingly warm, not the cold minimalist space he'd expected. Books everywhere, art on the walls, a piano in the corner that looked actually used. It felt lived in, despite being 3 times the size of his entire apartment. You play? He asked, gesturing at the piano. Since I was 5, it's the one thing my parents insisted on that I actually enjoyed. Will you play something? Maybe later. She headed to the kitchen. Wine? Sure. They ate pasta that Isabella had definitely not made herself, from the fancy Italian place on the ground floor, she admitted, and talked about everything except work. Emma's science project, Isabella's impossible family dynamics, Daniel's terrible apartment with the leaky faucet he kept meaning to fix. Somewhere around dessert, Isabella said, I've been thinking about Friday, when Mitchell gives you the deadline. Yeah? What if you countered? Countered how? Asked for a different role, something senior level but with less travel. Strategy work? Maybe some team leadership, but based here. That role doesn't exist. It could, if you pitched it right. Daniel considered this. You think Mitchell would go for it? I think you have more leverage than you realize. They want to keep you. Use that. Is this what you meant by being strategic? This is me wanting you to get what you deserve without having to sacrifice Emma. She paused. Or us. The word hung in the air. Us. Is that what we are? Daniel asked. An us? Isabella set down her wine glass, met his eyes. I think we're getting there. Where's there? I don't know, but I want to find out. Daniel reached across the table, found her hand. Me too. They moved to the couch, talked until midnight about nothing and everything. At some point, Isabella fell asleep against his shoulder, and Daniel just sat there, breathing in the moment. His phone buzzed, text from his mother asking if he was alive. He responded with a quick, I'm fine, staying out late, then set it aside. Isabella stirred. What time is it? Little after 12. You should go. Emma is with my mom. It's fine. Isabella sat up, blinked sleepily. I fell asleep on you. I noticed. That's embarrassing. That's human. She smiled, leaned her head back on his shoulder. Stay a little longer? Okay. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights through the windows. Eventually, Isabella said, Daniel? Yeah? I'm scared. The admission was quiet, almost lost in the ambient noise of the city outside. Of what? He asked. Of this. Of wanting something this much. Of what happens if it doesn't work. She turned to look at him. I've spent my entire life controlling everything, keeping everything at a manageable distance. But you? I can't control this. What we are, what we're becoming, and that's terrifying. Daniel understood. He really did. Because he felt it too. That vertigo of falling into something without knowing where the bottom was. What if we're terrible at this? Isabella continued. What if I'm too closed off and you're too focused on Emma and we can't figure out how to make it work? Then we'll be terrible at it together, Daniel said, and we'll figure it out anyway. You make it sound simple. It is simple, not easy, but simple. He shifted to face her fully. I like you. You like me. Everything else is just details. Important details. Sure, but we'll work through them. That's what people do when they care about each other. Isabella was quiet for a long moment. Then, I've never had this before. Someone who made me feel like I could be messy and imperfect, and it would be okay. You can be all of those things with me. Promise? Promise. She kissed him then, slow and sweet and full of all the words neither of them quite knew how to say. When Daniel finally left around 1 a.m., driving through the empty city streets toward home, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not the desperate kind that came from wishing things were different, the real kind, the kind that came from actually believing they could be. Thursday morning, Daniel woke up to a text from Isabella. Isabella, thank you for last night. Daniel, thank you for dinner. Isabella, I meant all of it, the talking, the honesty. You staying even though I fell asleep like an old person at midnight. Daniel, you needed the sleep. Isabella, I needed you there. The words hit him square in the chest. Daniel, I needed to be there. Isabella, see you at work? Daniel, wouldn't miss it. At the office, they maintained professional distance, nodding hellos in the hallway, separate lunch breaks. But Daniel caught her watching him during the afternoon meeting, and when their eyes met, she smiled. It was enough. Friday arrived with a clarity Daniel hadn't expected. He met with Mitchell at 10 a.m., right on schedule. Have you made your decision? Mitchell asked. I have. I'm grateful for the offer, but I'm going to have to decline the senior director position. Mitchell didn't look surprised. Can I ask why? Because the role, as structured, isn't compatible with my life. I have a daughter who needs me present, and 60% travel doesn't allow for that. We discussed the challenges. You did, and I appreciate the honesty. Daniel leaned forward. But I'd like to propose an alternative. Mitchell's eyebrow raised. I'm listening. Create a senior strategy role based here. Team leadership, client strategy work, some travel but minimal. Maybe 1 week a month, maximum. I'd focus on developing junior analysts, building out our strategic frameworks, supporting the client-facing team without being on the road constantly. That's not a role we currently have. It could be. You're expanding the department. You need someone who understands both the strategic side and the practical implementation. Someone who can bridge the gap between what we promise clients and what we actually deliver. Mitchell studied him. You've thought about this. I have. And if I say no? Then I'll stay in my current role and keep doing good work. But I think we both know the department would benefit from this position existing. Silence stretched between them. Then Mitchell said, let me talk to the executive team. I can't promise anything. That's all I'm asking. Walking out of Mitchell's office, Daniel felt lighter than he had in weeks. Win or lose, he'd advocated for what he needed. That was enough. Isabella was waiting by his desk when he got back. How did it go? She asked quietly. I countered, just like you suggested. And? He's taking it to the executive team. Pride flashed across her face. Good. You deserve this. We'll see. Daniel, she glanced around, making sure no one was in earshot. Regardless of what happens with the promotion, I'm proud of you. The words settled warm in his chest. Thank you. Dinner tonight to celebrate your bravery or commiserate your unemployment, depending on how this plays out? I'd love to, but I promised Emma we'd have movie night. It's kind of our thing on Fridays. Right. Of course. Isabella stepped back. Another time. Actually, Daniel surprised himself. Would you want to join us? Her eyes widened. Join you? Yeah, it's just pizza and whatever animated movie Emma picks. Nothing fancy, but he stopped, chose his words carefully. But if we're doing this, really doing this, then at some point you should probably meet the most important person in my life. Isabella looked genuinely shocked. Are you sure? Emma's been asking about you, and I think… He took a breath. I think she should meet the person who makes her dad smile at his phone like an idiot. I make you smile like an idiot? Constantly. Isabella's whole face softened. Okay, yes, I'd love to meet Emma. Fair warning, she's 7 and has 0 filter. I work with executives. I can handle a 7-year-old. Famous last words. That evening, Isabella showed up at Daniel's apartment at 6, looking nervous in jeans and a sweater, the most casual he'd ever seen her. She had a gift bag in her hand. You didn't have to bring anything, Daniel said, letting her in. It's just something small. She glanced around the apartment, small, cluttered with Emma's school projects and Daniel's work papers. This is nice. It's tiny. It's lived in. I like it. Emma appeared from her room, eyes wide. Are you Dad's girlfriend? Emma. Daniel felt his face go red, but Isabella laughed. I'm Isabella, and you must be Emma. Your dad's told me a lot about you. He talks about you too, a lot. Emma grinned. He gets all weird and smiley. Does he? All the time. It's gross. Isabella crouched down to Emma's level. I brought you something. I heard you like science. She pulled out a beginner's chemistry kit from the bag. Nothing dangerous, just basic experiments with color-changing liquids and growing crystals. Emma's eyes went huge. This is so cool. Can we do one now? After pizza, Daniel interjected. And if Isabella's okay with staying? Isabella looked at him, then at Emma's hopeful face. I'm definitely okay with staying. They ordered pizza, set up the first chemistry experiment on the kitchen table, carefully supervised, and watched Emma's chosen movie. Somewhere around the middle, Emma fell asleep between them on the couch. She likes you, Daniel whispered. How can you tell? She fell asleep. She only does that when she feels safe. Isabella looked down at Emma, something tender in her expression. She's great. You're doing an amazing job with her. Most days I'm just trying not to mess her up too badly. That's what all good parents think. Isabella reached over Emma's sleeping form, found Daniel's hand. Thank you for this, for letting me in. Thank you for wanting in. They sat like that until Emma stirred around 9, groggy and confused. Did I fall asleep? She mumbled. You did, Daniel said. Time for bed, sweetheart. But Isabella said, We'll come back another time, Isabella said gently, if that's okay with you. Emma nodded sleepily. Okay. Bye, Isabella. Thanks for the science kit. Anytime. Daniel carried Emma to her room, tucked her in. When he came back out, Isabella was gathering her things. I should go, she said. You don't have to. I want to. Let Emma wake up tomorrow and ask you about me without me being here. Give you space to talk to her about… She gestured between them. Whatever this is, Daniel walked her to the door. For the record, she loved you. She's easy to love. So are you. The words came out before Daniel could stop them. Isabella froze. Daniel, too much? He asked. No, not too much. Just… She took a breath. Just exactly enough. She kissed him goodbye, soft and sweet, then left before either of them could say anything else that might tip them over whatever edge they were balanced on. Daniel closed the door, leaned against it, and let himself feel the full weight of what was happening. He was falling for her, had maybe already fallen, and from the look in her eyes, she was right there with him. It was terrifying and exhilarating and completely unprecedented, and for the first time in his life, Daniel wasn't afraid of the fall. Saturday morning, Emma cornered Daniel at the breakfast table before he'd even finished his first cup of coffee. So, she said, drawing out the word in that way that meant trouble. Isabella's nice. She is, Daniel agreed carefully. Is she your girlfriend now? Do you want her to be? Emma considered this, chewing her cereal thoughtfully. I don't know. Maybe. She brought me a cool science kit. Is that the criteria? Cool gifts? No. Emma swung her legs under the chair. But she looked at you the way you look at me when I show you my drawings, like she really sees you. Daniel nearly choked on his coffee. Where did you learn to say things like that? Grandma says it about you and Mom, that Mom really saw you. Emma's voice went quieter. Do you think Mom would like Isabella? The question hit Daniel square in the chest. He set down his mug, pulled Emma into his lap even though she was getting too big for it. Yeah, sweetheart, I think she would. Because Isabella's smart? Because Isabella makes me happy, and your mom always wanted me to be happy. Emma was quiet for a moment, then, I want you to be happy too. I know you do. So it's okay if she's your girlfriend? Daniel kissed the top of her head. If she becomes my girlfriend, you'll be the first to know. Promise. Okay. Emma wiggled free, went back to her cereal. Can we go to the park today? Absolutely. They spent the day doing normal Saturday things. Park, grocery shopping, an impromptu stop at the bookstore where Emma convinced him to buy 3 new books instead of 1. It was ordinary and perfect, and Daniel felt something settle in his chest that had been restless for years. His phone buzzed around 2. Isabella. How did the conversation with Emma go? Daniel. She asked if you're my girlfriend. Isabella. What did you tell her? Daniel. That she'd be the first to know if you were. Isabella. Am I? Daniel stared at the text, heart pounding. They hadn't actually defined anything, hadn't put labels on whatever this was. But standing in the children's section of the bookstore, watching Emma flip through a book about ocean life, the answer felt obvious. Daniel. Do you want to be? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Isabella. Yes. Daniel. Then yeah, you are. Isabella. Just like that? Daniel. Just like that. Isabella. We're really bad at the traditional dating timeline, aren't we? Daniel. Terrible. Want to come over for dinner? Emma's asking. Isabella. Emma's asking or you're asking? Daniel. Both. Isabella. What time? Isabella showed up at 5:30 with ingredients for homemade pasta sauce and a determined expression. You're actually cooking? Daniel asked, surprised. I'm attempting to cook. There's a difference. She set the bags on the counter. Emma deserves better than takeout 2 nights in a row. Emma appeared, climbed onto a stool. Can I help? Please, I have no idea what I'm doing. They worked together in Daniel's tiny kitchen, Isabella reading instructions from her phone, Emma measuring ingredients, Daniel trying not to laugh at both of them. The sauce turned out surprisingly good, even if they made a mess that took 20 minutes to clean up. Over dinner, Emma peppered Isabella with questions. What's your job? I help companies make smart decisions about money and strategy. That sounds boring. Emma, Daniel warned. But Isabella laughed. It can be, but it's also like solving really complicated puzzles. I like puzzles. Me too. Dad's terrible at them, though. I am not terrible, Daniel protested. You gave up on that 1,000-piece puzzle after 3 days. That puzzle was defective. Emma rolled her eyes in a way that was far too mature for 7. What else do you like, besides puzzles and my dad? Isabella's cheeks colored slightly. I like reading and playing piano, and I'm learning to like cooking, apparently. Do you have kids? No. Do you want kids? Emma, that's, Daniel started. It's okay, Isabella said. She looked at Emma seriously. I've never really thought about it. I work a lot, and I always figured kids weren't really in the cards for me, but she glanced at Daniel, then back at Emma. I think the right answer is that I don't know yet. Is that okay? Emma nodded, satisfied. That's honest. I like honest. Me too. After dinner, Emma challenged Isabella to a game of chess, something Daniel's mother had been teaching her. Isabella looked delighted. You play? She asked Emma. A little. Grandma says I'm good for my age. Well, let's see. Daniel watched from the kitchen, doing dishes, as they set up the board. Isabella didn't go easy on Emma, but she explained her moves, pointed out opportunities Emma missed. By the end of the game, which Isabella won, Emma was grinning. Can we play again next time? Absolutely, Isabella said. But next time I won't be so nice. You weren't nice this time. Exactly. Emma went to bed at 8:30, but not before hugging Isabella goodnight, quick and unprompted. After Daniel tucked her in, He found Isabella standing by the window, looking out at the city lights. "She's amazing," Isabella said without turning around. "She liked you." "How can you tell?" "She challenged you to chess. She only does that with people she wants to impress." Daniel crossed to her, wrapped his arms around her waist from behind. "Also the hug. That's huge." Isabella leaned back against him. "I didn't expect to like this so much." "Like what?" "This. Being here. Domesticity, I guess. I've spent my whole life avoiding anything that looked like normal family stuff, but this..." She turned in his arms. "This feels right." "Yeah?" "Yeah." She kissed him softly. "I should go. You both need sleep." "Stay." Isabella pulled back, searched his face. "Daniel?" "Not like that. Just stay. Watch a movie with me. Fall asleep on my terrible couch. Leave in the morning after actual breakfast." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." They ended up on the couch with some action movie neither of them really watched. Isabella tucked against Daniel's side. Around 11, she dozed off, exactly like she'd done at her place. Daniel let her sleep, content to just exist in the moment. His phone buzzed quietly. Text from his mother. "Emma told me about your girlfriend. About time, baby." Daniel smiled, texted back. "Thanks, Mom." His mother. "She sounds lovely. When do I meet her?" Daniel. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves." His mother. "Too late. I'm already planning Sunday dinner, next week. Don't argue." Daniel glanced down at Isabella, sleeping peacefully, and thought about his mother's kitchen full of family chaos and loud opinions and unconditional love. Thought about Isabella being thrown into that without warning. This was going to be interesting. Sunday morning, Isabella woke up on Daniel's couch at 6 a.m., disoriented and rumpled. "Morning," Daniel said from the kitchen, already making coffee. "I fell asleep again." "You did? That's becoming a pattern." "I don't mind." Isabella sat up, tried to smooth her hair. "I look terrible." "You look human." "That's not a compliment." "It is to me." Daniel brought her coffee, sat beside her. "My mother wants to meet you." Isabella nearly dropped the mug. "What?" "Emma told her about you. Now she's demanding you come to Sunday dinner next week." That's really fast." "You don't have to if you're not ready. I can tell her." "No." Isabella took a breath. "No, I want to meet her. If she's important to you, then..." She smiled nervously. "Then I want to meet her. Fair warning, she's going to ask you approximately 1 million questions and probably show you my embarrassing childhood photos." "I can handle that." "She's also going to ask when we're getting married." Isabella choked on her coffee. "Seriously?" "She did it to my last girlfriend after 2 dates. My mother believes in efficiency." "We haven't even been officially dating for 48 hours. "I'm aware. But in her mind, if I'm bringing someone to family dinner, it's serious." Isabella set down her coffee, looked at him directly. "Is it? Serious?" Daniel didn't hesitate. "Yeah, it is." "For me too," she said quietly. "That's terrifying." "I know. But I'm doing it anyway." "I know that too." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Isabella said, "I should go home. Shower, change, try to look like someone who has their life together. You don't have to perform for me." "I know, but I want to." She kissed him, soft and lingering. "Thank you for last night, for letting me be part of this. Thank you for wanting to be." After she left, Daniel made Emma pancakes and broke the news about Sunday dinner. Emma brightened immediately. "Isabella's coming to Grandma's? If that's okay with you." "Why wouldn't it be?" "Because Grandma's dinners can be a lot. Uncle Mike always argues about politics, Aunt Sarah talks too loud, and there are usually about 15 people crammed into that house." "But that's family," Emma said simply. "If Isabella's your girlfriend, she should meet family." The logic was unassailable. Monday morning brought unexpected news. Daniel was at his desk by 8 when Mitchell appeared, looking almost pleased. "Hayes, my office." Daniel followed, stomach tight with anticipation. "The executive team approved your proposal," Mitchell said without preamble. "Senior strategy director, based here, maximum 20% travel. You'll build out the team, focus on strategic frameworks and analyst development." Daniel's mind went blank. They approved it? Laurent made a compelling case for why the position was necessary. Apparently, she can be very persuasive when she wants to be. Mitchell handed him a folder. Offer detail, salary, benefits, start date. Look it over, let me know if you have questions. Thank you. Don't thank me, thank Laurent. This was her idea. Mitchell paused. Well, your idea. But she's the one who sold it. After leaving Mitchell's office, Daniel went straight to Isabella's. She was on a call, but she saw him through the glass and held up one finger. The moment she hung up, he was through the door. You did this, he said. Did what? Convince them. The position. Mitchell said you made the case. Isabella's expression was carefully neutral. I pointed out some operational inefficiencies that the role would address. Isabella, you did the hard part. You proposed it. You pitched it. She shrugged. I just made sure they understood the value. Daniel crossed to her desk, pulled her to her feet, and kissed her. When they broke apart, both breathless, Isabella said, What was that for? For being you, for believing in me, for making me believe in myself. I didn't do anything. You did everything. He rested his forehead against hers. I was ready to quit, to walk away from all of it, and you made me see that I didn't have to choose between my career and my life, that I could have both. You figured that out yourself. Maybe, but you helped. Isabella's arms tightened around him. You would have done the same for me. In a heartbeat. They stood like that for a long moment before Isabella pulled back. We're at work, she said, but she was smiling. We are. People are going to notice. Let them. Daniel, I don't care if people know. Do you? Isabella considered this. I've spent my whole life worrying about what people think, what they'll say about me, about my relationships, about whether I earned things or bought them. She met his eyes. But I don't care what they think about this, about us. Good. Neither do I. The next few days settled into a new rhythm. Daniel dove into his new role, started building out frameworks for the strategy team. Isabella collaborated on several projects, their professional dynamics shifting but not disappearing. They still argued about approaches, still challenged each other, but now there was an undercurrent of partnership that felt solid. Emma adjusted to Isabella's presence with the easy adaptability of childhood. Isabella came to dinner twice that week, helped with homework once, and even made it to Emma's soccer practice on Thursday. You didn't have to come, Daniel said as they stood on the sidelines. I wanted to see her play. Isabella watched Emma chase the ball down the field. She's good. She gets that from her mom. Sarah played in college. Isabella glanced at him. You don't talk about her much. Sarah. It's hard sometimes. 4 years and it still doesn't feel real that she's gone. What was she like? Daniel thought about it. Brave. Practical. The kind of person who made everyone around her feel capable. She would have liked you. How do you know? Because she always told me I needed someone who wouldn't put up with my nonsense, someone who'd push me to be better. He smiled. That's you. Isabella's hand found his. I wish I could have met her. Me too. They stood in comfortable silence, watching Emma play, and Daniel felt something shift. This wasn't replacing Sarah. It wasn't forgetting her or moving on in some linear way. It was just life, continuing, growing around the loss instead of being consumed by it. Sunday dinner at his mother's house was exactly the chaos Daniel had warned Isabella about. His mother, Patricia Hayes, answered the door with a shrewd look and a warm hug. So you're the one who's got my son smiling again, she said, pulling Isabella inside before she could respond. Mom, Daniel started. Hush. I'm welcoming your girlfriend. Patricia held Isabella at arm's length, studying her. You're prettier than he described. I didn't describe her as anything, Daniel protested. Exactly, which meant he was being careful. Daniel only gets careful when he's serious. Patricia winked at Isabella. Come in, everyone's dying to meet you. The house was packed. Daniel's Uncle Mike and Aunt Sarah, various cousins, family friends who'd been coming to Sunday dinner for decades. Emma ran up immediately, grabbed Isabella's hand. Come meet everyone! Isabella looked mildly terrified, but let Emma drag her into the living room. Daniel followed, watching as his daughter introduced Isabella to the chaos of his extended family. His mother appeared at his elbow. She's nervous. Wouldn't you be? I like her already. Patricia squeezed his arm. She looks at you like you matter. That's all I need to know. Dinner was loud and overwhelming and perfect. Isabella held her own, answering questions about her work without being pretentious, listening to Uncle Mike's terrible political takes without arguing, and even helping Patricia in the kitchen despite having no idea what she was doing. At one point, Daniel found Isabella at the sink, washing dishes alongside his mother. You don't have to do that, he said. I want to help, Isabella replied. Patricia beamed. See, I knew I liked her. After dinner, they gathered in the living room. Someone put on music. Emma fell asleep on the couch between two cousins, and Isabella, sitting beside Daniel with his niece chattering at her about school, looked almost relaxed. You okay? Daniel whispered. Yeah, this is... She looked around at the noise and the mess and the love. This is really nice. Even with Uncle Mike's rant about tax policy? Even then. On the drive home, Emma asleep in the back seat, Isabella said, Your family's wonderful. They're a lot. They love you, all of you, loudly and without reservation. She looked out the window. I've never had that. Your family doesn't... My family has expectations and obligations and very specific ideas about what success looks like. Love isn't really part of the equation. She turned to him. What you have, what Emma has, that's special. You're part of it now, if you want to be. Isabella's smile was soft. I want to be. The following week brought its own challenges. Daniel's new position officially started, which meant restructuring his schedule, interviewing potential team members, and navigating the politics of being senior leadership. Isabella was dealing with a difficult merger that kept her at the office until midnight most nights. They barely saw each other except in passing. Thursday evening, Daniel was leaving at 6, a luxury he was still getting used to, when he passed Isabella's office. She was at her desk, looking exhausted. He knocked. Hey. She looked up, managed a tired smile. Hey yourself. You look wiped. The Carlson merger is killing me. Their financials are a disaster, and I'm supposed to present recommendations tomorrow morning. Daniel checked his watch. Emma was at his mother's until 8. Have you eaten? I had coffee around 3. That's not food. He made a decision. I'm ordering Thai. You're taking a break. Daniel, I can't. 20 minutes. You need to eat, and I miss you. Isabella's expression softened. You miss me? We've barely talked in 4 days. Yeah, I miss you. She saved her work, followed him to the small conference room. They ate pad thai straight from the containers, talking about everything except work. Emma's latest obsession with marine biology, Isabella's impossible mother who kept calling about some charity gala, Daniel's attempt to fix the leaky faucet that had somehow made it worse. You need a plumber, Isabella said. I need about 15 things. Plumber's on the list. What else is on the list? New kitchen faucet, bedroom door that actually closes, that weird smell in the bathroom that I can't identify. You're falling apart. The apartment's falling apart. I'm managing. Isabella was quiet for a moment, then, what if you moved? Can't afford anything bigger in a decent school district. What if you didn't have to worry about affording it? Daniel set down his fork. Isabella, I have a 3-bedroom apartment that's way too big for one person. You and Emma could... We've been dating for 2 weeks. I know it's fast. I'm not saying now, I'm just... She stopped, started over. I'm saying eventually. When it makes sense. If it makes sense. Daniel studied her face, saw the vulnerability there. You've been thinking about this. Maybe. For how long? Since Sunday dinner, watching Emma fall asleep on your cousin's lap. Seeing how your family just absorbed me like I'd always been there. Isabella met his eyes. I've never had that. A place where I just fit. And I thought about what it would be like if... She stopped, looking embarrassed. This is crazy. Forget I said anything. Isabella. It's too much, too fast. I shouldn't have... Daniel reached across the table, found her hand. It's not crazy. It's not? It's fast. Maybe too fast. But it's not crazy. He squeezed her hand. Ask me again in 6 months. 6 months? Yeah, if we're still doing this, still figuring out how to be us, ask me again, and I'll seriously consider it. Hope flashed across Isabella's face. Yeah? Yeah. They finished eating, and Daniel walked her back to her office. At her door, she turned, kissed him softly. Thank you, she said. For what? For not running away when I got weird about moving in together after 2 weeks. You weren't weird, you were honest. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. I like when you're honest. Even when I'm honest about wanting things that are probably too much to ask for? Especially then. Isabella kissed him again, deeper this time. When they pulled apart, she said, I should get back to work. You should go home and sleep. After I finish this analysis. Isabella, I promise. 2 more hours, then home. Daniel knew better than to argue. Text me when you get there. You'll be asleep. Text me anyway. She did, at 11:30. Just got home. Thank you for dinner. Daniel, already half asleep, texted back. Anytime. Love you. He was asleep before he realized what he'd written. Friday morning, he woke up to 17 missed messages. The first was from Isabella, sent at 11:45. Did you mean that? Then at midnight. Or was it autocorrect? 12:30. I'm not freaking out. You're freaking out. 1 a.m. Okay, I'm definitely freaking out. 2 a.m. I should let you sleep. 3 a.m. But did you mean it? 4 a.m. I'm going to sleep now. We'll talk tomorrow. 5 a.m. I can't sleep. 6 a.m. Okay, definitely overthinking this. 7 a.m. Daniel, I know you're probably still asleep, but I need you to wake up and tell me if you meant it, because I've been up all night, and I think I might be losing my mind. The most recent, from 10 minutes ago. Never mind. I'll see you at work. We can pretend this never happened. Daniel's heart was pounding. He'd said it. He'd actually said it, and he hadn't even been fully conscious when he did. But the thing was, he'd meant it. Somewhere between that first night in the office and now, somewhere between arguing about strategy and making terrible pasta sauce and watching her play chess with his daughter, he'd fallen completely in love with Isabella Laurent. He called her. She answered on the first ring, voice breathless. Hi. I meant it. Silence. Isabella? You meant it, she repeated, like she was testing the words. Yeah, I did. I know it's fast and probably crazy, but I meant it. Oh. Her voice was small. Okay. Is that okay? I don't know. Maybe. Yes? She laughed, shaky. I've never had anyone say that to me before. Not like that. Not like they actually meant it. I do mean it. I know. That's what's terrifying. A pause. Daniel? Yeah. I think I might love you too. The words hit him like a physical force. You think? I don't have a lot of reference points for this. But whatever this feeling is, where I can't stop thinking about you and I want you around all the time and the idea of you not being in my life makes me feel sick. I think that's love. Daniel was grinning so hard his face hurt. Yeah, that's definitely love. So we're in love. Apparently, after 2 weeks. I told you we were bad at the traditional timeline. Isabella laughed, and it sounded like relief. What do we do now? I don't know. Keep doing what we're doing? Which is? Being honest, being us, figuring it out as we go. That simple? That's simple. They talked for another 20 minutes. Isabella admitting she'd been awake all night. Daniel confessing he'd meant to say it eventually, but not via half-asleep text. Both of them marveling at how quickly everything had shifted. I should let you get ready for work, Isabella said finally. Come over tonight? I'll make dinner. Emma's been asking about you. I love that. Isabella? Yeah? I love you. A pause, then soft and certain. I love you too. That evening, Isabella showed up with flowers for Emma and that same nervous energy from Sunday dinner. But Emma hugged her immediately, chattering about her science class, and within minutes, the nervousness faded. They made dinner together, actual cooking, nothing fancy, but it felt significant somehow, like they were building something. After Emma went to bed, Daniel and Isabella sat on the couch, her head on his shoulder. This is nice, she said. Which part? All of it. The domesticity. The quiet. You. She tilted her head up to look at him. I never thought I'd have this. What changed? You did. You made me want things I'd convinced myself I didn't need. She kissed him softly. Thank you for that. Thank you for letting me in. They sat in comfortable silence, the city humming beyond the windows, and Daniel felt something he'd been chasing for years finally settle into place. This was it. This was the life he'd been working toward without knowing it. Not perfect, not without complications, but real. Honest. Full of possibility. I meant what I said, Isabella said quietly. About moving in, not now, but eventually. I know. Does that scare you? A little, but the good kind of scared. There's a good kind? Yeah, the kind that means you're doing something that matters. Isabella smiled against his shoulder. You matter to me. You matter to me too. They stayed like that until Isabella started to doze off. Predictably, inevitably. And Daniel just held her, thinking about everything that had changed in 3 weeks. He'd been ready to walk away from everything. And instead, he'd found everything he didn't know he needed. It wasn't the promotion or the new position or even the better work-life balance, though those things helped. It was this. These quiet moments. Emma's laughter, Isabella's honesty. The feeling that for the first time in years, he wasn't just surviving. He was living. And it was enough. More than enough. It was everything. 3 months passed in a blur of ordinary moments that somehow felt extraordinary. Daniel settled into his new role, built a team of 5 analysts who actually respected reasonable working hours, and made it home for dinner with Emma 6 nights out of 7. The 7th night was reserved for Isabella. Sometimes dinner out, sometimes cooking disasters in his kitchen, once a completely failed attempt at pottery that left them both covered in clay and laughing too hard to breathe. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever was. There were still tough days, client emergencies that ran late, Emma's nightmares about losing Daniel the way she'd lost her mother, Isabella's periodic retreats into work when her family pressure became too much. But they worked through it. Together. The word had taken on new meaning. Together didn't mean everything was easy. It meant someone was there when things got hard. August brought unexpected complications. Isabella's mother, Victoria Laurent, requested a meeting. Not invited, requested, like it was a business transaction. Isabella had been avoiding her family for months, dodging calls about the charity gala, the foundation board seat, the endless obligations that came with being a Laurent. I should probably just get it over with, Isabella said one evening, sitting on Daniel's couch with her feet tucked under her. Emma was at a sleepover, giving them rare alone time. Want me to come with you? Daniel offered. To meet my mother? Isabella looked horrified. That's like throwing you into a shark tank. I've handled Mitchell. How much worse can she be? You have no idea. But when the meeting time came, lunch at an absurdly expensive restaurant downtown, Daniel went anyway. He wore his best suit, the one he'd bought for the Morrison presentation, and tried not to feel completely out of his depth. Victoria Laurent was exactly what Daniel expected, elegant, cold, assessing him the moment they walked in like he was a balance sheet that didn't quite add up. Mr. Hayes, she said, extending a hand that was more formality than warmth, Isabella's told me about you. Nothing good, I hope, Daniel tried to joke. Victoria didn't smile. She says you're a director at Meridian now. Strategy, was it? Senior strategy director, yes. And before that? Senior analyst. I've been with the company 3 years. Victoria's expression said everything about what she thought of 3 years versus Isabella's pedigree. I see. And you have a daughter? Emma, she's 7. Single parent? My wife passed away 4 years ago. A flicker of something, sympathy, maybe, crossed Victoria's face before the ice returned. That must be difficult. It is. But we manage. Throughout lunch, Victoria asked pointed questions disguised as polite conversation. Daniel's education, state school, not Ivy League. His family background, working class, decidedly not old money. His career trajectory, solid but unspectacular. Each answer seemed to confirm whatever assessment she'd made before they even sat down. Isabella was tense beside him, barely touching her food. Finally, Victoria set down her fork and looked at Daniel directly. My daughter has never brought anyone to meet me before. In fact, she spent most of her adult life actively avoiding family gatherings and obligations. Mom, Isabella started. I'm not criticizing, darling. I'm observing. Victoria's gaze didn't leave Daniel. So I have to ask, what makes you different? The question hung in the air, sharp and challenging. Daniel thought about deflecting, about giving some safe corporate answer. Instead, he said, I don't want anything from her except her. Victoria's eyebrow raised. Everyone wants something. Not from Isabella, not from her name or her money or her connections. He glanced at Isabella, saw her watching him intently. I just want her. The person who burns pasta sauce and falls asleep during movies and works too hard because she's trying to prove something to people who should already know she's brilliant. That's quite romantic, Victoria said dryly. It's honest. And honesty is important to you? It's the only thing that matters. Victoria studied him for a long moment. Then she turned to Isabella. You love him. It wasn't a question. Isabella's cheeks colored, but she didn't look away from her mother. Yes. And you? Victoria asked Daniel. Do you love my daughter? Completely. Despite the complications, the family expectations, the social pressures, the fact that your worlds are fundamentally different? Because of them, Daniel corrected. Those complications are part of who she is. I'm not trying to save her from her life. I'm trying to be part of it. Something shifted in Victoria's expression, not warmth exactly, but a crack in the ice. Isabella, could you give us a moment? I'd like to speak with Mr. Hayes privately. Isabella looked between them, worried. Mom, it's okay, Daniel said quietly. After Isabella excused herself, Victoria leaned back in her chair, really looking at Daniel for the first time. My daughter has spent her entire life trying to prove she's more than her last name. It's exhausting to watch. I can imagine. Can you? Can you really understand what it's like to have every achievement questioned, every relationship scrutinized, every success attributed to family influence rather than personal merit? Daniel thought about it honestly. No, I can't. My struggles have been different. Making ends meet, being a single parent, working my way up without a safety net. But I understand wanting to be seen for who you are instead of what people assume about you. Victoria nodded slowly. Isabella is brilliant, truly exceptional, but she's also fragile in ways she'd never admit. The last man she brought around, years ago before she stopped trying, was only interested in her trust fund. It devastated her. I'm not that guy. No, you're not. Victoria's voice softened slightly. You look at her like she matters, not her portfolio, not her potential, just her. That's rare. She does matter. To me, to my daughter, to everyone who actually knows her. Your daughter. Victoria smiled, small but genuine. Isabella mentioned Emma, said she's bright, curious, challenges her at chess. Emma likes her. That's not something that happens easily. And if this becomes serious, more serious than it already is, you'd be bringing Isabella into your daughter's life permanently. That's a significant responsibility. I know, but Isabella is already part of Emma's life. She comes to soccer games and helps with homework and shows up for the small stuff that matters. Emma trusts her. Do you? Trust her? With everything. Victoria was quiet for a moment, then signaled for the check. I want Isabella to be happy, truly happy, not just successful or accomplished. For the first time in her life, I think she might actually be both. She looked at Daniel directly. Don't make me regret giving you my approval. You're approving? Provisionally. Hurt her, and you'll discover exactly how ruthless the Laurent family can be. Daniel couldn't help but smile. Fair enough. When Isabella returned looking anxious, Victoria stood and kissed her daughter's cheek, a gesture that clearly surprised Isabella. He'll do, Victoria said simply. Then to Daniel, take care of her. Always. After Victoria left, Isabella grabbed Daniel's hand. What did she say to you? That she wants you to be happy. That's it? And that if I hurt you, she'll destroy me. But mostly, the happy thing. Isabella laughed, relief evident. She liked you, I could tell. How? She didn't immediately try to bribe you to leave me alone. That's as close to approval as she gets. They walked out of the restaurant into the summer heat, and Isabella stopped on the sidewalk, turned to face him. Thank you, she said. For what? For showing up. For being honest with her. For not being intimidated by... She gestured vaguely. All of this. I was definitely intimidated. But you did it anyway. Because you matter more than being comfortable. Isabella kissed him, right there on the sidewalk, and Daniel felt something settle. This was real, permanent, the kind of thing that survived meeting the terrifying family and all the complications that came with it. September brought Daniel's 33rd birthday, which he'd completely forgotten about until Emma reminded him at breakfast. "You're having a party," she announced. "I am? Isabella and I planned it. It's a surprise, but I'm bad at keeping secrets." "Emma, it's Saturday, at Isabella's place. Don't tell her I told you." Daniel tried to look surprised when Saturday arrived, and Isabella insisted they come over for just dinner. Her apartment was full of people. His mother, Uncle Mike, several colleagues from work, even Mitchell and his wife. Emma had made a banner that said, "Happy Birthday, Dad," in crayon and glitter. "You did this?" Daniel asked Isabella quietly. "Emma wanted you to have a real party. Your mom helped plan it. I thought you were bad at this stuff. Personal relationships, celebrations, all that. I'm learning," she smiled. Turns out having people worth celebrating makes it easier. The party was chaotic and perfect. Uncle Mike told embarrassing stories from Daniel's childhood. Mitchell actually relaxed and told a joke. Emma charmed everyone by explaining, in detail, her latest science project about tide pools. And Isabella moved through it all with a grace Daniel hadn't seen before. She wasn't performing or putting on the VP persona. She was just there, present, laughing at Uncle Mike's terrible stories and helping his mother in the kitchen and playing chess with Emma when the kids got bored. Later, after everyone left and Emma was asleep on Isabella's couch, Daniel found Isabella on the balcony, looking out at the city. "Thank you," he said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Emma did most of the planning." "Thank you anyway." Isabella leaned back against him. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Do you ever regret it? Turning down the senior director position? You could have been traveling, closing major deals, making twice what you're making now." Daniel thought about it honestly. "No, not even a little." "Why not?" "Because I get to have dinner with Emma 6 nights a week. Because I made it to every single one of her soccer games this season. Because I get to fall asleep next to you and wake up happy instead of exhausted." He turned her to face him. "The promotion would have given me success. What I have now is a life." "That's what changed, isn't it? That night you almost quit." "Yeah, I realized success and life aren't the same thing. I'd been chasing success for so long, trying to prove I could do it, that I forgot to actually live." Isabella was quiet for a moment. "I'm still learning that. How to live instead of just achieve." "How's it going?" "Better. Being with you helps. You and Emma, you remind me that there's more to life than quarterly earnings and strategic positioning. There's also terrible homemade pasta and science projects and falling asleep during movies." "Exactly," she smiled. "All the important stuff." They stood on the balcony until the city lights blurred in the late hour, and Daniel thought about how different his life looked now compared to 3 months ago. How close he'd come to walking away from all of it. October arrived with the kind of autumn weather that made the city bearable. Cool mornings, warm afternoons, leaves starting to turn in the park where Daniel took Emma on weekends. His team at work was running smoothly. Emma was thriving in school, and Isabella had started keeping clothes at his apartment, showing up for breakfast more often than not. It was domestic, in a way Daniel hadn't experienced since Sarah. Different, but good. Real. One Thursday evening, Emma was at a friend's house, and Daniel was attempting to fix the kitchen faucet. Again, when Isabella showed up with takeout and a nervous expression. "What's wrong?" he asked immediately. "Nothing's wrong. I need to talk to you about something." Daniel's stomach dropped. Those words never preceded good conversations. "Okay." Isabella set down the food, twisted her hands together. "I've been thinking about what I said months ago about moving in. You want to take it back?" "No, the opposite." She took a breath. "My lease is up in December. I could renew, or—" She met his eyes. "Or I could not." Daniel's heart was pounding. "Isabella, I know your apartment is small, and I know this is fast, but I spend most of my time here anyway, and Emma asked me last week why I don't just live here, and I couldn't think of a good reason except that we haven't talked about it." "What did you tell her?" "That I'd have to ask her dad first." "And what did she say?" She said you'd probably say yes because you get that face whenever I'm around. Daniel laughed, despite his nerves. What face? I don't know. The face. Her words, not mine. Isabella's expression turned serious. But I'm asking, not because my lease is up or because it's convenient, because I want this. I want to wake up here every morning and have dinner with you and Emma every night and build something permanent instead of just visiting it. Daniel thought about his tiny apartment, about sharing space, about what it would mean to take this step. Then he thought about coming home to Isabella already there, about Emma having her around all the time, about not having to say goodbye at the end of every evening. Yes, he said. Isabella blinked. Yes? Yes. Move in with us. Just like that? Just like that. She kissed him, relief and joy evident in every movement. When they broke apart, Daniel said, "But we're getting a bigger place. This apartment barely fits Emma and me. Adding you and all your stuff, I don't have that much stuff. You have 17 throw pillows on your couch alone. 16, and they're decorative." "We're getting a bigger place," Daniel repeated firmly. They spent the evening looking at apartments online, making lists of must-haves and nice-to-haves. Emma came home from her friend's house at 8, took one look at them on the couch, surrounded by laptop and notes, and said, "Is Isabella moving in?" "How did you know?" Isabella asked. "Because you guys are looking at apartments, and you both look happy scared. That's moving in face." "Happy scared?" Daniel repeated. "Yeah, happy because it's good, scared because it's big." Emma climbed between them on the couch. "Are we getting a bigger place?" "We are," Isabella said. "Is that okay with you?" Emma considered this seriously. "Can I have my own room that's bigger than the closet I have now?" "Definitely." "And can we get a place with a dishwasher? Dad's terrible at dishes." "Hey," Daniel protested. "You are, though," Emma said matter-of-factly. "Okay, I'm good with it." She went to her room, leaving Daniel and Isabella staring after her. "That was easy," Isabella said. "She likes you. I told you." "I like her too." Isabella leaned her head on Daniel's shoulder. "I like this. All of it." They found a place 3 weeks later, a 3-bedroom apartment in Emma's school district, with actual counter space in the kitchen and a dishwasher that made Emma cheer when she saw it. The rent was more than Daniel could afford alone, but Isabella insisted on splitting it proportionally to their salaries, which meant she paid more, but not so much that Daniel felt like he was being supported. "We're partners," she said when he tried to argue. "Partners split things fairly, not equally." Moving day in early December was chaos. Daniel's mother showed up with food. Uncle Mike brought a truck and terrible advice about furniture arrangement. Emma directed traffic like a tiny general, telling everyone where boxes should go. Isabella's contribution was 5 carloads of stuff she swore she didn't have that much of. 17 throw pillows, Daniel counted as he unpacked them. 18, I bought another set. Why do we need 18 throw pillows? Because the couch looks sad without them. By evening, they were exhausted and surrounded by half-unpacked boxes, but the apartment felt lived in already. Emma's room had her posters up and her stuffed elephant on the bed. Daniel and Isabella's room, their room together, had the basics set up. The kitchen was functional. After Emma went to bed, Daniel and Isabella collapsed on the couch, which did admittedly look better with the throw pillows. "We did it," Isabella said. "We did. I live with you now." "You do?" "That's terrifying. You keep saying that, because it keeps being true." She turned to face him. "What if you realize I'm terrible to live with? What if I have annoying habits you can't stand? What if—" Daniel kissed her, cutting off the spiral. When he pulled back, he said, "Then we'll figure it out, together. You make everything sound simple. It is simple. Not easy, but simple. We love each other. We're building a life. Everything else is just details." Isabella smiled, then glanced around at the boxes. "We should probably finish unpacking. Or we could leave it until tomorrow." "That's irresponsible." "I'm feeling irresponsible." They left the boxes for tomorrow. The holidays brought their own adjustments. Emma's first Christmas with Isabella living with them, Daniel's mother insisting Isabella come to family dinner every week, Isabella's gradual integration into a life that was nothing like the one she'd lived before. There were bumps. Isabella worked late too often, falling back into old patterns. Daniel sometimes forgot to tell her about schedule changes with Emma. They had their first real fight in January about whose turn it was to do laundry and whether it was reasonable to have strong opinions about towel folding techniques. "They're just towels," Daniel said, exasperated. "They're folded wrong. There's no wrong way to fold a towel. There absolutely is, and you're doing it." Emma, watching from the kitchen table, said, "You guys sound like an old married couple." They both stopped, looked at each other, and started laughing. "We're fighting about towels," Isabella said. "You started it." "I did not." She stopped, shook her head. "We're really fighting about towels." "Told you," Emma said, going back to her homework. Later, after they'd made up and agreed to disagree about towel folding, Isabella said, "Is this what normal relationships are like? Arguing about laundry and towels and whose turn it is to grocery shop?" "I think so. Why?" "Because I like it. The normalcy. The mundane problems." She curled against him on the couch. "I've spent my whole life dealing with high-stakes everything. This is nice." "Nice? Peaceful. Real. Like I can just be a person instead of Isabella Laurent, VP, billionaire heiress, whatever. You are just a person. An annoying person with opinions about towels, but a person." She elbowed him. "You love me anyway." "I really do." Spring brought unexpected news. Mitchell announced his retirement, and the executive team offered Isabella the VP position permanently, his role, not just acting capacity. It came with a significant raise, more responsibility, and the kind of visibility that could launch her towards C-suite roles. She turned it down. Daniel found out when he overheard her on the phone with her mother explaining the decision. "Because I don't want that life anymore," Isabella was saying. "I don't want 80-hour weeks and constant travel and being responsible for everything. No, Mother, it's not about him. It's about me. I know it's an incredible opportunity. I also know I'd be miserable." After she hung up, Daniel said, "You turned down the VP role." Isabella didn't look surprised he'd heard. "I did." "Why?" "Because I've spent my entire life chasing the next promotion, the next achievement, trying to prove I earned everything instead of inherited it. And I realized, I don't care anymore. I'm good at my job. I know I'm good. I don't need a title to prove it." "Your mother's going to lose her mind." "She already did. That was round 2 of the argument." Isabella smiled tiredly. "But I'm done living for other people's expectations. I want a life, not just a career. You taught me that." "I didn't teach you anything. You figured it out yourself." "Maybe. But you showed me what it could look like. Work that matters but doesn't consume you. Time for the people you love. Space to actually breathe." She crossed to him, wrapped her arms around his waist. "I don't want to be the person who misses everything because I'm always at the office. I want to be here, with you and Emma, building this." Daniel kissed her forehead. "I'm proud of you." For turning down a massive promotion? For knowing what you want and choosing it. What Isabella chose instead was a lateral move to a senior advisory role. High-level strategy work, flexible hours, no direct reports. She took a pay cut, but not a significant one, and gained something more valuable: time. Time for family dinners every night. Time for Emma's school events. Time to actually use the kitchen they'd both pretended they'd cook in. Time for lazy Sunday mornings and impromptu date nights and all the small moments that made up a life. By summer, they'd settled into a rhythm that felt sustainable. Daniel's team was thriving. Isabella's advisory work was engaging without being overwhelming. Emma was doing well in school, had made new friends, and had stopped asking when Isabella was leaving because she'd realized Isabella wasn't going anywhere. One evening in late June, Daniel was helping Emma with a geography project when she said casually, "Are you and Isabella going to get married?" Daniel nearly dropped the atlas. "What?" "Married. Are you guys going to do that?" Why are you asking?" "Because Sarah's parents just got engaged, and she was talking about weddings, and I was thinking about whether you and Isabella would get married." Emma looked up from her map. "You love each other, right?" "Yes." "And you live together?" "Yes." "So isn't that what people do next?" From the kitchen, Isabella called, "I can hear this entire conversation, and I'm interested in the answer too." Daniel shot her a look. She was leaning against the doorframe, trying not to smile. "We haven't really talked about it," Daniel said carefully. "Why not?" Emma asked. "Because..." He looked at Isabella, who raised her eyebrows. Because these things take time. You've been together almost a year, Emma pointed out. That seems like enough time to know. How did you get so smart? Daniel asked. I'm 7.5. That's basically 8. Isabella came into the living room, sat beside them. Emma, can I ask you something? Sure. If your dad and I did get married, how would you feel about that? Emma thought about it seriously. Would you still live here? Yes. And Dad would still be my dad? Of course. And you'd still help me with chess and science projects? Absolutely. Then I think it would be good. Emma smiled. You make Dad happy, and you're nice to me. That's what matters, right? Isabella's eyes were suspiciously bright. Yeah, sweetheart, that's what matters. After Emma went to bed, Daniel found Isabella on the balcony of their apartment, smaller than her old one, but theirs. So, he said, marriage. Emma brought it up, not me. But you're thinking about it. Isabella turned to face him. Are you? Yeah, I am. And? Daniel took a breath. And I don't have a ring or a plan or any of the things I probably should have before doing this, but he took her hands. I love you. I love the life we're building. I love who I am when I'm with you, and I want to keep doing this for the rest of my life, officially and permanently. Daniel, I'm not asking yet, not properly. But I'm saying that when I do ask, the answer I'm hoping for is yes. Isabella was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Can I tell you something? Anything. I bought a ring 3 months ago. Daniel blinked. What? For you. I saw it in a shop window and thought... She looked embarrassed. I thought maybe someday I'd want to ask you, even though that's not traditional, and maybe you'd want to be the one to ask, but I like the idea of being the one to choose this. To choose you. You were going to propose to me? Eventually. Maybe. I hadn't figured out the logistics. She smiled. But then Emma brought it up tonight and you said what you said, and now I'm thinking, why wait? Isabella... She disappeared into the apartment, came back with a small box. Inside was a simple platinum band, elegant and understated. I know I don't have the romantic speech planned or the perfect moment set up, she said, but I know I want this. You and Emma and this life we're building, so... She took a breath. Daniel Hayes, will you marry me? Daniel's heart was pounding so hard he could hear it. You're serious? Completely. You want to marry me? The guy with the terrible apartment and the leaky faucet and the 7-year-old who never stops asking questions. I want to marry the guy who sees me, who challenges me, who made me believe I could have a life instead of just a career. The guy who's an amazing father and a terrible dancer and falls asleep during every movie we watch. She smiled. Yeah, I want to marry you. Then yes. Yes? Yes, I'll marry you. Isabella's smile was blinding. She slipped the ring on his finger, a perfect fit, and kissed him. When they pulled apart, Daniel said, I'm still proposing to you properly, with a ring and a plan and everything. You don't have to. I want to. You got to propose to me. I get to propose to you. Fair is fair. When? You'll see. Daniel proposed 3 weeks later at the park where he'd first brought Emma after Sarah died. It was the place where he'd sat on a bench, overwhelmed and terrified, trying to figure out how to be a single parent, the place where he'd started over. He brought Isabella and Emma there on a Sunday afternoon under the pretense of a picnic. After they'd eaten, while Emma was playing on the swings, Daniel got down on one knee. What are you doing? Isabella asked, though she was already smiling. Something I should have done the night you proposed to me. He pulled out a ring, not as expensive as something from her world, but beautiful, simple, honest. Isabella Laurent? You've made me believe in second chances and new beginnings. You've shown me that love doesn't have to be perfect to be real. You've become Emma's family and mine, and I can't imagine my life without you in it. Will you marry me? Isabella was crying. You already know the answer. Say it anyway. Yes. Absolutely yes. He slipped the ring on her finger and Emma cheered from the swings, clearly in on the plan. They were married that fall in a small ceremony at his mother's house, family only, intimate and warm. Emma was the flower girl, wearing a dress she'd picked out herself and the biggest smile Daniel had ever seen. Isabella wore cream instead of white, simple and elegant. Daniel wore the suit from the Morrison presentation, which felt appropriate somehow. His mother cried through the entire ceremony. Uncle Mike told embarrassing stories at the reception. Emma gave a speech about how Isabella was pretty cool for a stepmom that made everyone laugh and cry. And Isabella looked happier than Daniel had ever seen her. No armor, no walls, just joy. When they danced, badly because Daniel really was a terrible dancer, Isabella said, "I can't believe this is my life now." Having regrets already? The opposite. I keep thinking about that night in the office, when you were leaving and I asked why you cared if you quit. I remember. If you'd left that night, none of this would have happened. We wouldn't be here. But I didn't leave. Why not? Really? Daniel thought about it. Because you asked me a question that made me realize I wasn't just tired of the job. I was tired of running from everything that mattered. And you, somewhere in all the arguments and competition and late nights, you'd become something that mattered. Past tense? You matter. Present tense. Always. Isabella rested her head on his shoulder as they swayed to music neither of them was really hearing. I spent so long thinking I didn't need this. Partnership, family, all of it. I thought I was above it somehow. Too focused, too ambitious. What changed? You did. You showed me that ambition and life aren't mutually exclusive, that I could want both, that wanting both didn't make me weak or less committed. It made me human. You were always human. You just didn't let anyone see it. I let you see it. I'm glad you did. They danced until Emma cut in, insisting she needed a turn with both of them. They danced as a family, awkward and laughing and perfect in its imperfection. Later, after the guests had left and Emma had fallen asleep on the couch, Daniel and Isabella sat on the back porch of his mother's house, watching the sun set. "You know what I realized?" Isabella said. "What?" "That night when you almost quit, you said you were done, tired enough not to care anymore." "I remember. But you did care. You cared enough to come back upstairs and ask why I was helping you. You cared enough to fight for the promotion structure you needed. You cared enough to choose a life that worked instead of just accepting the one that was destroying you." She took his hand. "You taught me that caring isn't weakness. It's the bravest thing we can do." Daniel thought about that. About how close he'd come to walking away from everything. About how caring, about Emma, about his own well-being, about Isabella, had saved him. "We saved each other," he said finally. "Yeah, we did." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the last light fade from the sky. Inside, Emma stirred on the couch, and Daniel's mother covered her with a blanket. His family, biological and chosen, filled the house with warmth and noise and love. A year ago, Daniel had been sitting at his desk ready to burn it all down, ready to walk away from a career that was killing him, from an office that demanded everything and gave back nothing, from a life that felt like it was happening to someone else. And now he had a wife who challenged him and supported him in equal measure, a daughter who was thriving, a career that mattered without consuming him, a family that was loud and messy and perfect. It wasn't the life he'd imagined when he'd started at Meridian 3 years ago. It was better, realer, built on a foundation of honest choices instead of desperate ones. "What are you thinking about?" Isabella asked. "About how different everything is from that night in the office. Good different or bad different? The best different." He kissed her temple. "Thank you for not letting me quit. Thank you for coming back." Emma appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "Are you guys being mushy again?" "Maybe," Isabella said, opening her arms. Emma climbed between them, and they sat there, the three of them, watching the stars come out. This was it. This was the life Daniel had been working toward without knowing it. Not perfect, not without challenges, but real and honest and full of people who mattered. He'd learned something in the chaos of the past year. Success wasn't about titles or promotions or working yourself into the ground to prove something to people who'd never really see you. Success was this, these quiet moments, this chosen family, this life built on caring instead of climbing. It was simple, really. Simple and revolutionary, and the hardest thing he'd ever done. Choosing to care. Choosing to stay. Choosing to build a life instead of just surviving one. And every single day, he chose it again. That was the real breakthrough. Not the promotion or the perfect partner or even the happy ending. It was understanding that happiness wasn't something you achieved. It was something you chose every day in small moments and big decisions. It was being present for your kid's soccer game and saying no to the opportunity that would destroy your life balance. It was being honest about what you needed and brave enough to ask for it. It was letting people in, even when it was terrifying, because the alternative, living behind walls forever, was worse. Daniel had almost walked away from all of it, and instead he'd walked toward the most important thing he'd never known he needed. Someone who saw him. Someone he saw clearly in return. A partnership built on honesty instead of pretense, on support instead of competition, on choosing each other every single day. Emma fell asleep between them, and Daniel carried her inside, tucked her into the guest room bed. Isabella followed, and they stood in the doorway watching her sleep. "She's ours now," Isabella whispered. "Officially. She's been ours for a while." "I know, but now it's legal." Isabella smiled. "I'm her stepmother. You're more than that. You're her family." "So are you." They stood there for a moment longer, then headed to their own room. Temporary, just for the night, but theirs nonetheless. "I love you," Isabella said as they got ready for bed. "I love you too. Even when I have opinions about towel folding? Especially then." She laughed, and it was the sound of someone who'd finally found home. They fell asleep tangled together, and Daniel's last thought before drifting off was simple and clear. He'd found it. The thing he'd been chasing his whole life without knowing what it was. Not success, not achievement, not the perfect career or the corner office or the validation of people who didn't really matter. Connection. Purpose. Love. The courage to choose life over survival. And tomorrow, he'd choose it again.